And good morning, Jake.
Oh, good morning. I don't know if I had a pretty picture up there in
I
time.
think you made it there in time, but now you do.
Right. Good morning. Hello to everybody. Welcome to another episode of Making Turbo Pit Fighter. We're making a post-apocalyptic sci-fi comic that looks something like this. And making it slow and steady only on Sundays. Mostly only on Sundays. But we're rounding out our Doom Magazine #1 anthology. I'm finishing the last page today of text, dialogue, word balloons for the Casualties 6-pager. No, I finished that. I'm sorry. I'm finishing the 6-pager for Turbo Pit Fighter. That's
Yes.
going to be in the book.
Yes.
And we're going to start to, once that's done, we're going to pivot to the zine pages, which are going to look like this, and the lead-in pages. So that's what's going on in the production. People might notice I have a haul here of comics, and I'm still going through my Florida haul. I just picked out a stack today to go over about this thick. And today, Kurt will be inking, which is exciting. Turbo #1, Turbo Pit Fighter #1, the latter pages. And you can
Last
see
10
that he's
pages.
flipping through them. Last 10 pages.
Yeah,
So
and
once we finish
I'm
18,
gonna be I'm gonna
we're
be
going
doing
to.
some. Just let me interject for a second because I'm going to be doing some spray painting today. So I'll be showing off that for technique. But at 11:30, we're going to have for the third time Tom Chalemi, who is a Fenwick Island, Delaware comic book store owner named Comics and Gaming. I was just recently down to see him a couple weeks ago. His Lost Landers comic graphic novel is out, and it's also adjacent to a line of toys. So he's going to be sharing about that and some real inside info about comic book distribution and the local retailers. So pretty excited
Yeah.
for reconnecting with Tom here for the third time. But that's what I got, Jake. Take it back.
Yeah, so some interesting stuff going on. I had an interesting week. I appeared on a podcast for teachers that was talking all about writing in AI, and it was pretty eye opening to see what's going on. I'm pretty down on AI in schools, but obviously AI are very powerful tools for writers, particularly for me for doing research while I'm writing, but also just organizing writing. And one thing I love is being able to be productive when I'm driving. So I've been testing out various AI chatbots for that purpose. And I'm very frustrated. I told my former colleague that runs the podcast that a lot of the really best tools are not available for free, or they're not available at all, and they're kind of like hoarded behind the scenes by these exclusive companies that purposely don't want like the average person to have these great creation tools. And for our purposes, Kurt and I always talk about this magic day that's going to come where you're going to be able to take a comic book like this and drop it into a slot, and it's into a machine, and it's going to give you a half an hour cartoon with music and motion and all the characters and everything. And then it'll say what parts do you want me to edit, and you'll just be able to give it prompts to change things, and it'll just like it'll do. I mean, one of the big obstacles to that right now is that there's a lot of computing power necessary for like rendering long stretches. I mean, people use Grok or some Sora, before they went under, and you see like, okay, this is taking like 10 minutes to render like a 5-second clip. So you get the idea. But Yeah, so that former colleague of mine, he's a good friend. He's going to be doing some kind of educational conference this summer in Michigan with teachers, and it's very controversial because for all the stuff that we do as adults, to hand AI tools in school to kids, there's a lot of people saying, whoa, put the brakes on that, 5-year moratorium, petitions, parents, like, there's a lot of pushback on that. And, I obviously it depends how old the kid is, but I don't think it should be anywhere near elementary schools. And I work in a middle school, so, you know, they have kind of like a yellow light, for certain things no. I mean, they're using it anyway at home now. And my wife was telling me even in sixth grade, they're coming in with pretty good experience about how to use cheap chat GPT to cheat on your homework.
Yeah, because who wants to do homework?
Right, exactly. The why learn,
So
why have anything to do.
Why don't they change that? Why don't you school systems change the way we learn, which is not regurgitating what you tell us that we're supposed to know in order to acquire a fantastic overpaying job, with the golden watch when you retire and the pension, which doesn't exist anymore.
There's no
You know what I
benefits, there's
mean?
no
Like,
anything. It's all
you know what I mean?
you're
Like
gonna
that's
work
my
in
big.
the
It's not about
daycare.
you. It's not I know you're in the system and God bless you, but that's my biggest pet peeve about the educational standardized education system, and especially when you hear people complain about the educational system. But the basics right now is that if you're putting a child into, in my opinion, 1 through, K through 12, that's 12 years of development without AI, is what you guys are trying to accomplish, or a 5-year moratorium. The whole world's good. Not only will the whole world pass that child by, but like the systems themselves. I mean, I just don't get
Well,
it.
no, if you were listening to me, I was saying that there is general pushback about bringing AI into schools before the products are refined and proven and studied and everything. But I was saying that there should be a yellow light in middle school. Obviously in high school, kids are going to use it more. But if you've ever I mean, every teacher, to get a degree, you have to take at least one course in child development. And the whole thing about early child development is that you have to make mistakes, you have to understand
Yeah, yeah,
how to learn, and
yeah,
AI just hands that all over for you,
yeah.
replacing all of those fundamental primary year developmental skills. So that's why I said it should be kept out of elementary schools. Um, and obviously teachers are using it already, and kids are already using it younger and younger. So the question is, are we going to sanction it in classroom? Like, are we going to say, here's assignment on Edgar Allan Poe, and just use ChatGPT to answer these questions, or to summarize it, or to do whatever, write a paper. You're farming out all of the thinking, processing, understanding. And I'm not saying schools were great before this, because we've for the last 10, 20 years, we've had an onslaught of just digital platforms, that I've been dead set against in the first place myself. Like, just being able to Google something has always been a shortcut for kids. And I'm not against a kid looking something up. But what they're googling is, you know, crib sheets, right? Give
Right.
me give me an essay that's already written, that answers this question, somewhere from the dark web, and I'm just going to cheat. So it's a problem because kids do not 99% of kids do not have the intrinsic motivation to learn. You need an adult standing over you every 5 minutes, reminding you, you have an assignment. You're going to get a report card. I'm going to call your parents. Like, you have to do this thing. And they're like, okay, dragging, kicking and dragging, they do their work until, in high school, most kids get a little more sense of like, all right, I have to take this on by myself. I have to get this paper done in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm going to flunk and I'm going to have to, repeat a course, or I'm not going to graduate on time, and that's going to hold back whatever my plans are.
My thing though is, wouldn't it be awesome? My short story in becoming an artist is I never was aware of art school until the 11th grade of high school when I tried to enlist in the Army. And when my art teacher found out, he's like, "What are you, crazy?" He's like, "You're going to art school." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Well, there's no such thing as an art school. And my point is this, is like, when you talk development, you're talking from the inside. I'm talking from the outside. So, and you have far more ground covered, in topic of this. But my dream and wish upon any developing child in the world, on the face of the planet, is developmentally by a point of like becoming passionate about something, anything, that then the educational system slots them into something where their development is really towards that. Not to become a productive corporate shill employee, but to become that creative problem solving being that I was given in 4 years of art school, a massive amount of tools in creative problem solving, where that's all I've been doing. And it's been for my livelihood. I've not made a living as an artist. I've made a living as a creative problem solver. And companies have hired me, like grocery stores like Trader Joe's hired me just to make some signs. But every time they started having problems, I would write up something. I would make a design. I'd hand it to my captain. The regional would come in, and they would both look at themselves and then me and say, "Yep, go ahead and do it." And I would even have a budget assigned to it.
Well, nowadays, a large format printer and Canva will do a lot of that stuff with a couple of presses of a button. That's what my art students at lunchtime are in competition with the tech teacher, because he's got this wide format poster printer. And so if a teacher wants a sign, they could ask a bunch of kids to do it.
That's not the point I'm talking about. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about was there was a problem, if you will, when I got to Trader Joe's. They had just started the program of in-store artists, and they had to get signs not only for each of the products, but also what they were saying value added. So it was like, because Trader Joe's, is very much on the no artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, but they were also buying things, to sell because they had antioxidants in it and stuff like that. But there were thousands of line items in the store, and it was just me. And then I ended up hiring somebody. That was my first proposal to my boss, was let me hire somebody. All I'm talking about is everything that has nothing to do with actually making something. I'm talking about all of the things, budgets, understanding, all these types of things that aspectually will bring something to fruition, hopefully. And the best thing that you said earlier was, learning how to fail. That I think should be grade K through 4 or 5. Like just setting things up and being like, man, you missed it. Oh, darn, what happened? Oh, man, you missed it. Darn, what happened? And then, okay. So every time I fail, that's a good thing, because I just keep building on top of it. This whole prepping for society, corporate identity, employment, and retirement is the biggest scheme. It's a scheme so much larger and outside of what AI is bringing us. I think that's what the fear overall, all of us are having, is this, oh my God, it's going to change everything. So everything everything we know and have come to understand will change. And that change will most definitely
Yeah.
be it won't exist anymore.
Yeah, so there's a real question, in education debates. What is the purpose of school? And you were hitting on that,
Yeah.
because it does get into like kind of like a left and right political debate, but there's a lot of people in charge, because they have to like um describe their policies at the state level, at the federal level, and
Yeah.
at the New York City level, and the district level. What is the purpose of school? And in recent years, it has been what you said, to prepare students for industry and to meet the needs of major industries.
Yep.
They're saying things like that, and educators are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what about the ability to critically think and to question
Yep.
authority, and to all this other kind of stuff.
Oh
So
no,
it
we can't
gets
have that.
it gets
We can't
very,
have
very quickly into a very, very contentious thing. But every teacher in a classroom has the ability to close the door when you have a class in there, and to teach however you see fit. And we're being asked to conform to all of this scripted curriculum. Like, my daughter is in a kindergarten, and she says she does no planning whatsoever. She hasn't written a single lesson plan, because she's handed a scripted curriculum that says at minute 5 you're supposed to say this, and at minute 7 you're supposed to say this.
Whoa.
And she doesn't like it at all. She wants
Wow.
she wants to go to another school, another system, because of that. And there's a lot of teachers that are like that. They're creative, and like, I know a lot of English teachers that want to teach a certain book, but you're not allowed to anymore, right? And they're taking away full books, and they're doing passages. So what we're talking about is really important, but it's also changing very quickly because of AI. And the ability, the laziness and the ability, like, when I'm talking to my brother now, we argue about different things in life, sports and politics, whatever. I was just hanging out yesterday. He has the AI in his other hand, and he is asking it, things like, we're talking about something, and we're like, yeah, well, who's playing the Knicks, in the playoffs, like, all that kind of stuff. So you're getting information like the weather or whatever. But then, we're getting into like stuff about the Iran war and all this stuff, and he's just asking every time he doesn't know something, and I ask him a question, he's asking ChatGPT, and I'm interested to hear what they have to say too. But you see how it's just displacing the
Yeah.
thinking that we do. We
Yeah.
have certain
I agree.
knowledge, and we should be able to. That's a cool panel you just finished. All right, so the battle goes on, but I was asked at a point, because I said, yeah, I do comics on the weekend, and I'm planning to do some comic cons, and I do some writing nowadays. That's the writing that I mostly do. I don't do any articles anymore, for education, really. And so yeah, so they're like, well, how do you use AI? How do they use AI in the comic industry? And so I was like, oh boy, it's all this whole thing about
They don't.
well, it's frowned upon. I said, but the number one rule, I said, it's mostly frowned upon. I mean, you have people putting stuff on Kickstarter every day. That's just AI. But it's frowned upon. But the number one rule is that if you are using it for any part of your process, whether it's just looking up a reference or anything, the number one thing is you never want it to be noticeable that it's just AI slop, and standard AI mailing it in slop, because that will give you away. And I would say that probably a lot of people are using it for cityscape backgrounds, and a lot of people are probably using it for give me a view of the Eiffel Tower from the worm's eye view, or stuff like that. But but the number one thing is like hide it, like don't let anybody see you, because there are a lot of militant critics now, and and a a lot of artists that are very resentful of, and same thing with Hollywood and actors and directors and CGI. You got Ben Affleck, who is I think he's starting like this AI based studio, and that's very controversial. So let's get into something a little less controversial. Let's get into this stack because I want to power through this. These are all dollar comics or less that I got. Some of these I bought like 50 comics for $30. And why did I get each one? There's an answer to that. Here's a gold key Magnus Robot Fighter 4000 AD from the year 1967.
What?
6 seconds.
What?
And this is Russ Manning art. I recognize that name. He's really a good kind of like standard guy. This is really nice sci-fi stuff. I was flipping through this a little. Probably just talking heads are not great, and so the script isn't as action oriented as I would have wished. The colors are horrendous. I call this Fruity Pebbles when they feel like they have to use every color in the box, every page. I think, but there's a lot of cool stuff here. There's some robot design.
There's a lot of good stuff. So if I can also interject, if you see that splaying panel,
yeah.
There's a really good chance that Gil Kane probably worked that panel, and that was one of the things somebody years ago was going through some. I can't remember when Gil Kane worked with Russ Manning, but he's his hand is in there, but it's that to and fro development, that was going on. So it's kind of cool to go through that book and be like, oh shit, there's like teenage Gil Kane in here.
Well, 67, didn't Gil Kane get started in the earlier 60s?
Yeah, I'm not saying that issue itself. Like I'm
right.
Like, I'm
yeah, this is issue number let me see. I don't see
138.
What's that? It says
what is that 138?
Yeah, somebody wrote that on there. And they wrote 162 over here. And they wrote 138 again. This belongs in room 138. This was issue number 20, November 1967. So this is a great year to be alive. But this coloring artist, like, to me, this is awful. They said, I'm going to make it a blue background here. I'm going to make it a green background here, yellow, orange. This, to me, this is just like, it's like a kid that gets a set of markers and you're drawing a picture and it's like, oh, I have to use every marker in my picture, but a cool comic nonetheless. This is a reader copy, obviously. I picked this up for you.
What? Oh yeah. Dig the realm.
Yeah, because I got one for you before. I don't know, and then I found another one, so I have two for
Caliber
you
press too.
in your little box. But this is number 14, and it looks pretty uniform. Like I thought this was a little cartoony for me, but it's got some like elfy looking characters, and it's got an interesting kind of like distribution of grays and whites and blacks, and I'm not sure what it's about, but I'm sticking this in your pile.
Oh, I thank you, sir.
All right. Why did I buy The Thing and Jocasta? Well, I want to see what they do with Jocasta. This has Machine Man in it.
Nice.
And the artist, and I'm not sure who the artist is. It is, let's see, Ron Wilson. And then the ink for inkers, it says A Sorted. So A dot sorted right here. See that?
Yeah.
So that means they did it, but the bullpen was doing it by committee, and they didn't give any one person. So this could have been like whoever's around, Rubenstein and all those kind of guys were around. But I wanted to see Jocasta. Now I have this great personal challenge where I want to have this character. My character is called Chromita. And she has shiny chrome designs on it. And I love seeing like how Jack Kirby used to do the Silver Surfer and how they do all the robots and everything and the chrome effect. And, they have this kind of like real basic chrome effect that they used to use in the Metal Man for a female character named Platinum. And Jocasta to me looks like she was based on that when Marvel invented her. But whenever you see her, there's usually Ultron is not too far away. And there was this great like romance thing that they did with her and Machine Man over the years. So I guess the Thing is dipping his little nose in all that. And this is basically a Machine Man comic, but Ron Wilson art. So you're not getting Jack Kirby, but you're getting Machine Man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get too much out of this, but it's Tom DeFalco is the writer, and so those were those years where he was on this, and you know, Joe Costa doesn't appear enough for my taste here. Like, where's all the Joe Costa? I'm seeing the Thing, I'm seeing Ultron,
Yeah,
I'm seeing the Machine Man.
yeah,
So this might be like a part two, and the last issue was the Thing and Machine Man, right? But it looks like it just kind of starts out, you know, blank. So maybe the next issue, yeah, it looks like probably the next issue is going to be the Thing and Machine Man. Look at this beautiful wall though back here.
oh
You see
my
that?
god, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great page. Just that page, texture wise.
So, and this is why I buy these dollar comics, right? I mean, it might just be one little idea that you get one time, but here's this thing, right? Because we do these kind of like machine, like a mechanical, like backgrounds all the time. It could be a wall, could be a ceiling, could be a machine, could be whatever. But look how they do this kind of thing with the patterns, right? Like it looks like a circuit board or something. But now they have this arc right here, and we're gonna like make everything that's positive into negative. I'm gonna make everything that's negative into positive, right? And it has a beautiful effect because it looks like the giant shadow is being cast on it. So that's the kind of like idea that I'll say, I'm gonna do that. Next time I do machinery, I'm going to just split it into a dark and a light thing. I'm gonna have everything the reverse, and they like that's a great visual effect. That's a great concept, right? Right, and that's why we buy this whole thing. Might never read it, but we're flipping through every page to see if there's anything that jumps out that we can use for our inspire our art making. Here's Anthro number 2 for $1. The artist on the cover is Howie Post, and I think this is going to be the same guy inside. And this is pretty cartoony for DC and this time period. So it's really a different thing here. But Anthro is like this early caveman guy, and this Howie Post guy looks like kind of a traditional illustrator, with kind of like this newspaper editorial cartoon style, maybe. He's here in the comics and DC. I don't know anything about him. This is a little scribbly for me. I think it's a no to scribble scrabble, but
What year is that book?
yeah. So this is 1968,
Yeah, I
and
think I think DC was slowly getting out of some of the licensing stuff that they had with like Bob Hope and Dobie Gillis, and there was an artist. He did this comic. It was like Debbie and the Ape or something like that. He was like pretty like solid, man. I should look that up. But anyhow, Anthro, I think who's the artist on Anthro?
Howie Post.
Howie Post. I don't know.
Yeah, and this was when Joe Orlando was the editor and Carmine Infantino was editorial director.
Yeah. So that's because you said 69. So that's when the transition's starting to happen. Where they're gonna supposedly get more serious, and this might have been one of those titles that was like creeping on there. But they had one comic. God damn it, I gotta find out it. But I've actually gotten into it over the years. Whenever I find something, it was like a Dobie Gillis or it was like a teenage heartthrob or something. But it was definitely bending on Archie named Binky.
When I'm looking through these dollar bins, usually I'm pretty quick to pick up anything from Pacific, Caliber, Eclipse.
Yeah, the artist I'm
Aircel.
talking about is Bob Oaksner, Oksner. He had a date with Debbie. Oh, swinging with Scooter. These are stuff. These I picked these up, but I think there was one with an ape. But anyhow, just interjecting.
Yeah, these titles, like I was gonna say, when you first get to the indie comics and some of those.
Angel and the Ape. I'm sorry, he is like this guy is. You want tight cartooning, like animation level stuff? Look up Bob Oxner, Oksner. I'm telling you guys, you're gonna find some jewels in these silly little comics. So great. I'm telling you, anytime I see like a bunch of those books on eBay, I just buy them. Like especially when they're in the late '60s era, and I know that they're a Bob Oxner title, I will pick it up because you're going to get a great anatomy, story flow for pages and stuff. Like totally underrated artist coming through DC.
Bob Oxner.
Yeah.
Well, he did Supergirl. He did
Yeah,
Aaron Lewis,
yes. That is like a really
Joby
that's
Gillis,
sexy Supergirl.
Angel and the Ape.
Yeah, Angel and the Ape's a great one.
I'll
I
see a
think they
little
actually
Miss,
tried to redo that a couple of years
see a
ago.
little Miss Marvel here. I mean, Marvel. What's her name? Mary Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looks good. Then some Binky's buddies, but DC. Yeah, so it's like DC's putting out some maybe female oriented, Archie style comics.
Yeah,
But he also did superheroes. He did Stanley and his monster. Binky, yeah. The graphics. Look at these graphics on the masthead. That looks like an Archie comic, right? They're
yeah.
using the bubbly serifs and everything, Um, so yeah, so these guys are interesting. Like I would never poo-poo somebody's art style, no matter what. But you don't see it all that much. And what I was going to say is a lot of those very early indie titles like Eclipse and Pacific and Aircell and all those. A lot of those early titles were kind of like anthropomorphic animal
Yeah,
comics,
yeah.
and so I say, oh look, here's an old Caliber, or here's an old and I'm like, oh no, it's like these anthropomorphic characters, which I don't really collect. So it's kind of like I just let even if it's a number one, but it was very early in the evolution of those companies. Here's an interesting one, and this is Acetylene Comics Vesper #2, and and it says 1999 right here. The artist is named Hannibal King, who I think went on to do some other stuff. Maybe he got a little better. But I've never heard of Acetylene Comics before, and for 1999, I'm looking at this whiz bang font, which tells me they were right in that age where they were starting to say, hey, I can use a computer font, and I can just print them out and tape it down. So it looks like they were doing that. But here's a really good example of some interesting artwork that is colored so darkly that it's almost ruining everything. Like this page right here, I can hardly see what's going on. I'll try to eliminate the shine, but I can hardly see what's going on. And this might be look better on your monitor because your monitor might be automatically adjusting it. But there's so much detail in here that it's just dark. Look at this page right here.
Yeah, but all the colors. I mean, the saturation of those colors is like over 50, 60%. Like even look at the white gray. I mean, somebody was kind of classically trained or had some good understanding of color theory, but in application with that digital computering coloring, and then it making its way through the printers, big fail.
There is a lot of action here in Vesper #2.
It's good to me. I'd get a copy.
Here's one thing here's one thing. Like here, they have these word balloons that are tinted back a little bit, like a
Yep.
little bit of a purple tint. That's
Yep.
better. Here, you can see that's so super dark, but then these, stark white ones, they
Yep.
make your eye go back and
Yep.
forth with light and dark. And, I think they should be kind of like incorporated in too. Now here, this guy's pulling a gun and he says, "Okay, puta, you no move, you no die." The demon woman, she no
All
scared,
right.
O Toro. She say to him, cold like ice, "Hello, Toro. Wah, Baldy, that you? Where's Tuco, Toro?" So you can see there's some real interesting
Wow.
dialogue here, and there's a lot going on. You see kind of like an Aeon Flux influence. You see
Mm-hmm.
kind of like this Mark Evanier. You see this kind of like Flair influence, and you know Wade, and the way that they used to have those the those comics with like a lot of upskirt angles and stuff. But look at all this. Look at all this.
Wow. Wow. Phew.
A lot here on the
A lot of
page.
blue. You
The
could have
one,
gotten. You could have like, yeah, hot pink or orange in the background on those pages would have been popping.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not even
like like
talking.
I,
I'm talking like bright, like really
yeah,
make
like
it.
I said, it's very dark overall. But I'm thinking there might be like an Aeon Flux influence here because
Oh,
she's very
yeah,
wiry,
yeah.
and maybe 1999, maybe that's when it was all coming out. Look here, she's all bound and ungagged on the couch. I'm interested now in this artist, Hannibal King. Why does that sound so familiar? And is that a made up name? Hannibal King. And look at this. This comic just goes on and on. So I'm a fan. I would buy the other one if I found it. I don't know if there was any more. I never heard of Acetylene Comics. Here's an ad coming in the fall of 2001. So this probably came out in 2000, and this artwork is signed 99. Um, the Twisted Sale of Samuel Lane Pockets. I don't know if that ever came out. Here we have Bug number 2. So I guess number 1 came out, and they're showing you some preview pages. Bugg, Bugs, or Bug, and yeah, it's an interesting style. It looks a little manga-ish for the day. It looks a little Japanese-ish. This is a nice, thing, but if this is what the interiors look like, it's a little different. Yeah, interesting company. Here is a pinup that they got done of I don't know what character, but it's by who else but James O'Barr. Look at that.
Whoa.
Really nice
Wow.
character. Yeah.
99, huh?
Acetylene Comics. Right. And here is something called Kill Pop, a 9-song CD featuring the drumming and vocal talents of Acetylene Comics artist Tyson Schroeder of Pockets and Dystopia. So he's plugging his band here or his CD. And these ads are very informative. Vesper, issue number 3, The Word for the Day, cover number 1, Hannibal King and Rob Hunter. Here, this is not a well drawn kid proportion in proportion, unless it's like a dwarfish person or something. And then here's some interior pages that they're previewing, and it looks pretty good. They colored some pages, it's more of the same, and this looks pretty good. Hannibal King. I wonder what else he's done. So the final ad. So this is Vesper. These are just page wasters. These things all about Vesper. We've got some truly remarkable twists and turns coming soon. Okay, pal. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yep.
And then finally here, the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. Um, I used to do this too. You put a page in for that if you have an extra page to help the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. So wow, I'm really impressed. Vesper. I didn't think I was gonna like this so much. Um, Moving right along. So I picked up X Factor #2, Giant Size Annual, and it looks like a Neil Adams clone on the cover, right? And it's
Yeah.
signed here. Oh man, I can't read it. It looks like an R. Let's see if there's a clue inside. Oh yeah, Tom Grindberg. Is this
Yeah.
Grindberg here? No,
Wow.
this is somebody else. Uh, I can't freaking read. Oh, does it go this way? Oh yeah, it's Grindberg. I had it
Yeah,
upside
that's got to
down.
be it.
So Tom Grindberg is an interesting guy, and the inks here are Joe Rubinstein, the aforementioned Joe Rubinstein. And look how much of a Neil Adams study he was, right? With foreshortening, with the anatomy, um, the facial expressions, and good on him, man. This is a great, I guess, channeling of Neil Adams, Tom Grindberg. So unfortunately, there's a bunch of kids sitting around here for like 4 pages. But now we're getting back to X Factor, and X Factor was designed to look like a little bit like the original X-Men, which was a Neil Adams, vehicle for I think like 5 or 6 of the most classic issues of X-Men before they switched over to the new X-Men. So who wouldn't want to do that? And Kurt, I gotta ask you about something. Have you been watching um, what's his name on YouTube that has the 3 T's in his name? What's his name again?
Matt T.
Yeah, Matt. I saw an amazing Matt post where he was explaining that John Byrne of
Yeah.
you saw that one?
Oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah. I knew you were gonna you got to get you're getting a copy of that, right?
Oh, yeah, it looks really good, but it's all recolored. So, just for folks out there, check out Matt TTTT on YouTube because he goes over this new anthology that's coming out in 3 volumes. Apparently, John Byrne, the famous X-Men and Marvel and DC artist, nobody needs to explain who he is. Apparently, he was pissed off at Marvel and he sat down and he was pissed off at Chris Claremont specifically.
Yeah.
And he sat down and he made his own X-Men comics, right? That he wrote and he drew and inked, right? And he didn't get paid for it. And he sat in his house doing it for fun or doing it for his own edification, knowing it might never come out, it might never see the light of day, but just doing it because he wanted to. And the staggering statistic that I could not believe my eyes or ears, because this is later John Byrne. Imagine like 10 years or something like that after his original run on X-Men to come back and do it with this like, different style where he's doing a lot more splash and he's doing a lot more kind of like, you know, it looked a lot like continuity comics to me, Kurt. Don't you agree? That he was really like, wrapping the pages all together and it looked like he was, kind of breaking the traditional horizontal and vertical, panel
Yeah.
formats.
Yeah.
So really interesting looking John Byrne X-Men comics with all these guest appearances, Fantastic Four, all that kind of stuff. But the most amazing, astonishing, startling stat that I couldn't believe my eyes or ears is that he sat down and he did 30 issues of unauthorized X-Men fan fiction. And it's coming out now, not by Marvel, but by Abrams Press, who I spoke to at the last MochaCon. And they're putting this out in 3 deluxe hardcover editions um, that are mind blowing. And so I don't know what they each cost. It's probably going to be $100 to get them all. But really interesting. And you get a great sense of the backstory from Matt TTT And I recommend that people go see that. So I just saw that this week. I'm a huge fan of Matt TTT now. He really does these things. He
His
gets
new format, is just super solid. Like before he was doing these massive, probably took him a month. I mean, he actually said it, month and a half, research, recording, editing. But now he's just using this sort of like uh, PowerPoint kind of just one sheet where he just literally moves around and you get to see the graphics real
Oh
quick.
yeah.
It's
No,
just
that's
so,
good. It's
and,
it's
and
like a murder board. Yeah, it's like a
his,
murder board.
the amount of research and information he's giving you in his podcast is just hands down top notch. It's not off the cuff. There is nothing about him that is off the cuff, and it's very it's refreshing. It's refreshing, I'll just say.
Yeah, big fan. I'm glad he's in my feed, and I find his stuff to be interesting. And he also, what I love about him is he ends it when it's over. He's like,
Yeah,
all right, that's it.
that's it. That's what
Like,
I got. Bye. It's
yeah,
not.
there's no repetition. So much on YouTube is just repetition. Ugh,
Oh my god!
they
It's
tell you
5 minutes of
10 things there.
content. 5 minutes of content. 5 times 25 minutes.
Yeah. So, Kurt, the reason why Tom Grindberg looks so much like Neil Adams is because Tom Grindberg worked for continuity.
No.
Yeah, under Neil Adams, he was done armor, and he was, I guess, ghosting and collaborating and everything. But then he went to Marvel and DC, which is great. He did Man of Steel, The Secret Defenders. I'm gonna look for Grindberg. Like here, he gets bogged down with a lot of, like, I guess not ideal stuff. Like a Power Pack is like a guest appearance in this, and there was this real funny thing. Like look right here, there was this real funny thing. Like I actually bought a copy of Power Pack because they said the guy that does the art of Power Pack is like the only guy that can draw kids, in proportion.
Yeah,
Look
as
how
children.
hard,
Yeah.
look how hard it is
Yeah.
to draw kids
Solid.
in proportion.
Yeah.
And so there's a real art to that. And so it's like I would rather draw horses than kids. I would rather draw crowd scenes than kids. But I bought a copy.
I'm gonna cut that out. Make it a 1-second clip.
Yeah, because when I was flipping through dollar boxes, I found a full run of Power Pack. I could have bought like every issue of Power Pack from like number 2 to like number 30, whatever. So I bought one because I wanted to see how that Power Pack guy draws kids. But look how Neil Adamsy Tom Grindberg is, man.
I mean, Neil. You don't think Neil was
you're gonna
like? Let me see them
copy
pages
some-
before they go out. Let me see
What's
them
that?
pages.
Yeah,
You don't
exactly.
think Neil was like,
Yeah.
let me see them pages before they go out, and he just sat there and did what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, but he's on X Factor for Marvel. No, Neil. I disagree. Neil Adams is not helping him for his Marvel pages. I don't think it doesn't benefit him in
If
any
it
way.
came through his shop,
Maybe, but I don't know that Tom Grindberg's getting the money. It's not like they're crediting his his agency. I don't know. It's probably somebody probably has a good behind the scenes on that one. But I'm gonna try to collect Tom Grindberg's Marvel and DC stuff if I can pick them up, especially if they're cheap. He did some What If. He did some Whiz Kids model character designs. Hawkman. Here he's look at this. He's aping Frazetta. Look at that. Tom Grindberg.
Yeah,
These are probably. This is
Conan
probably
covers, Conan pinups.
yeah, portfolio work, for prints, for conventions. Here he's doing Silver Surfer. So a good name. I'm glad I came across that one. Look at this piece. Have you ever seen this one? This is CFW Comics.
Yeah, I got the first 11 issues.
You do?
Oh no, not Ninja Warriors. I have Tales of the Ninja.
Yeah, this is Tales of the Ninja Warriors.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on that. Yeah, flip through that. Let me see. It's hard to. There's no imagery of them inside.
All right. So Cover art: Doran Fish, Stephen Ross. This is an anthology. It's
Yeah.
Kabuki Kid,
Yeah.
Black Angel, Flint, and Ninja Notes.
Yeah.
So I guess we have a lot of different contributors, and this is not a great sign that they spelled contributors, uh, contributators. Maybe that was done on purpose. These are our contributators. Let's see. We have on sale this month from CFW Comics, Tales of the Ninja Warriors number 13, which I'm holding in my hand. Tales of the Kung Fu Warriors number 13. That's different. And then Shred number 4, featuring street rot, sex violence, and thrashing. No idea what that means. But Shred is some other character. I guess we will see ads in the back. Let's proceed. Okay, so I think we might have a power comic here on our hands. Kabuki Kid, written and penciled by Doran Fish, lettered and inked by Marvy Fish. So this looks like it could be female art, female executed art here, which you do not see very often in Kung Fu comics. Oh my God, will you look at the proportion of text to images here?
Yeah, but what point size is
So
that?
here,
8? Is that like an 8
the
point?
point size is not bad. No, it's not that bad. The
It's
point
not
size,
that bad. All right.
you know, yeah. This is the point size is not that bad. Like here, you can see the word. I guess I understand, and they did have to squeeze this in a little bit. So let me revise what I said. Look, the point size does not start out so bad, but by the time you get to just the third page, look what they're doing here. It's all running together like an underground, and this is all hand lettered. But look how neat this dialogue is, and look how cramped this dialogue is. So they really went out of their way to set up this story with grandfather and the history and this person born and this person died. But then we kind of open up and we get to some action a little bit here. So, you know, it's not like the whole comic is like that. And yeah, we have to check out some of these martial arts comics because we need to start thinking about our martial arts sequence in Do Magazine number 2.
Yes.
Um, They're introducing a new character called Geisha, and Geisha is throwing her shurikens and throwing her knives here. She doesn't look like she breaks a sweat, but this, yeah. So this is a power comic. I think this is like a self-contained, like I don't know, 10 pager, and the first 1, 2, 3, 4 pages are completely text heavy, and then you get to a little bit of action, and then one battle scene, maybe 2, 3 pages, and then it's the end. So I don't know about the planning. You have this idea in your mind of a story, but you got to think of it in terms of like art and panels and everything. Um, this is another artist here. Let me see if I can get the credit. If I can credit them. Art and story by Christian Gossett. Not a name I've heard of, not a style I recognize. Um, this year, the year of this is very yellow pages, is 1989. And so this is an interesting pickup from a Power Comics perspective.
I don't
Right?
think I'm not agreeing with you on Power Comic. That's way outside the league of a Power Comic. And
Well,
if you want, I think Alex, we could have Alex on because Alex is always questioning whether books are Power Comic or not. I see Ethan and Ben Mara, and I forget the other fellow's name on powercomics.com. It was basically somebody at a high school level of art education going off and making their book.
Right.
And there's a lot of miss in it. There's not a lot. Like I said, I got 1 through 11 of Tales, and it has the same artist, the same comic characters and stuff. And I put it up there as like just like high level 80s black and white comics. Like they're decent, you know.
Well, you know, the first
Not
story.
missing much other than that writer's verbosity of wanting to be heard, not seen.
Well, you know, for me, the word is like, is it amateurish, right? And I mean, you know,
It's
there's a
got
lot
heart.
of different.
It's got heart.
Yeah, if it's got heart, if it's got honesty, right?
Yeah,
Passion comes through. I
yeah.
mean, you know, also, you know, what do they do with black and white is a big thing. Like this person has got some interesting gray tone effects. I'm not sure how they get there, but you know, it prints up very interesting, and I can tell that the ink is definitely, you know, blobbing on these pages because when you look at the lettering, it like the letters run together. When you get to this second sequence here, Black Angel, which you can barely read. You know, this is even more like I want to say cartoony, but you know they do have you know an eye for storytelling. Look how bogged down. I mean, you know, look how bogged down they get on you know tiny word balloons and narration. By the time you get here, look how bogged down they get in word balloons. Look at some of these. I mean, and I love it, Kurt. Don't get me wrong. I love it when it's amateur.
No. I just don't. I don't agree with just automatic. I mean, because like I said, the term is, you know, Ethan,
It's yeah. It's
Evan and them on powercomics.com. That's what they did, is that they were giving a definition and a
yeah.
platform for people who, if they didn't, would have just been completely forgotten because
Right.
there was nothing being enjoyed openly or publicly, which then, you know, people then ran
I
to.
mean, I agree. If they have a podcast by that name and they've taken it upon themselves to nickname you know certain artists a power comic and they spotlight certain ones and they might say you know we're going to do this one today but this is more of an exception to our rules. You know, it really is on them,
No,
and
I've
guys
watched
like
every
us are
I've
just
watched
borrowing the
every
terminology.
episode. I've watched every episode, and the discussion starts and ends with, "Is this a power comic?" And like Ben Mara and God, I can't remember the other. I got to get the other guy's name
Yeah,
down because it's not
bothering you.
it's not fair because he does a lot of the research.
Wow, I like this third sequence here. You know, it's kind of art nouveau and it's
It's
kind of open.
Zach Carlson. Oh, Gabriel. Gabriel's the other guy. Gabriel. Oh, come on, give me what the hell's going on here?
this
I
this
mean,
this one
and
is really
they started on Tumblr. They started on Tumblr, which is
yeah.
pretty funny.
Oh, they were the one on Tumblr.
Yeah, well, they started on Tumblr, and then Evan moved them to a YouTube channel. Yeah, Gabriel. Damn
I
it.
like this. I like this sequence by S. David Lee, and all rights reserved, with Terrence Shackelford as dialect consultant.
Dickel. Gabe Dickel.
Flint Drillers #3. Wow, look at
Also,
this.
just a time check. We're at 117, so
11/17.
11. Sorry, 11:17. So we should be
Yeah, no
seeing.
problem. I could interrupt this anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I was digging deep into this Tales of the Ninja Warriors. I would pick this up again and see what's in here because it looks like they have a stable of artists. Look at this guy's style. This is like a real freeform style, like a kind of Howie Cheeky and Frank Springer, just like slashing ink around. Look at this.
Yeah, my only disappointment was they were definitely catering to, you know, young adults. Like it was super teen oriented, and
Yeah,
that was my. I was really hoping it was gonna go above teenage to, you know, maybe 17 and older kind of
Mike
like feel.
Sikowski.
Not you know, a little bit more violence, a little more, you know,
Yeah.
like
Well, it's a thick book.
esoterics or what have you.
It's a thick book, you know. So I'm gonna be on the lookout for that. Well, I'll do a couple more, however many we have time for. So I bought a Dark Horse comic for the Steam Man. And I recognize the Steam Man because I actually teach the history of robotics through art. And, I have a slideshow that explains who the Steam Man was um, back in the this is an interesting story. Back in the 1890s, there was a Hungarian inventor in New Jersey by the name of Zadok, and he invented a steam propelled humanoid that could pull a cart. And there were newspaper articles, and he made a sensation. And the promise was is that you're not going to need a horse anymore, you're not going to need any manual labor, you could just get the steam man to pull the cart. And they had this exhibition space in the fairgrounds in New Jersey. I'm going to say Trenton, but it might have been like Newark or something. And they had the steam man. The problem is, reality check.
He ran
um
out of steam.
yeah, he could only go about 100 yards.
I
He
got
could
it.
only go about 100 yards, and he could only pull the cart on a straight, nice surface road. And whenever they try to like scale this up or use it like on the countryside or whatever, it break down constantly, and it only goes too short and everything. But what happened, and here's the miraculous part. What happened was Steam Man became the stuff of the pulps, and became the stuff of short stories. And he became the stuff of these full color covers on these little adventure booklets. And Steam Man ended up having this fantastic run as a fictional hero during these years and for decades following. Whereas the original real life Steam Man was like you
Ran
said,
out of steam.
out of steam. So this is very interesting because it looks like Dark Horse is picking up a public domain, I imagine, character, the Steam Man, who has appeared, in from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And it definitely inspired things like the Tin Man and Wizard of Oz, and Frank Baum and all that kind of stuff. And this looks like a pretty good Dark Horse comic. I mean, I'm flipping through this and I'm seeing like the Steam Man he's gigantic, like the Iron Giant. And I'm seeing that this art is pretty good. And I'm seeing that there's a very limited color palette, which is really great because I'm loving, like, to me, this is how comics should be colored. A very limited palette that brings the action along, gets you in the mood. No fruity pebbles. Nothing's too dark, nothing's too light, but you're definitely in a mood here. And then they could vary from that mood when they want to. They can get a little more yellow, or they can get a little more bright. um and Dark Horse, everybody knows, is quality comics, generally speaking. So how about the Steam Man number 3? So I'm going to bring this into my classroom and leave this in my classroom, and I'm going to say, if anybody else wants, to see some nowadays comics of Steam Man after I go over that, because Steam Man was important in the evolution of automatons and robots. Um, you also have some ads here, so let's check out these ads. This is just a pinup for, I guess, the next Steam Man. There's going to be a bad guy on a mechanical horse, and all of these impaled bodies, and he's got a hook. So I don't know if this is Steam Man number 4 or if this is something else. I'm confused. Here, Paul Galisi and the Rook, and something that I've never seen, I barely have seen that I can remember, is Paul Galisi with glossy uh, Photoshop image comics coloring, and it doesn't look good to me. It doesn't look like Paul Galisi, the way I know him and love him. But there's a little and Paul Galisi and someone here. I guess that might be his colorist or something. But he did the Rook, and although I'm a huge fan of Paul Galisi, I'll probably give it a shot. This Steam Man comic comes out in December of 2015. It looks like the print size is impossible to read here. I don't know. You could. I have to put it on camera in order to read it. No, I still can't read it. Anyway, that's the Steam Man. Maybe one more. We got Jay Lee Hellshock, and this is an Image comic. I'm not sure why I bought this because I'm not a huge fan. Oh, look at that! Here's why I bought it. Look inside. Yeah, he goes to like a Barry Windsor inside style. Look at that. Oh man. Yeah, because I don't like this where it's like every page is like this scratchy pinup thing when it's like this brooding character. Now, this is not my favorite page right here, but I love a page like this, you know. And let's see. So yeah, it's a combination. I mean, I don't know if he's trying to channel Barry Windsor Smith, but it just reminds me of Barry Windsor Smith, a little bit of Sam Keith, a little bit of Bill Sienkiewicz, and a little bit of Sin City Frank Miller. Yeah, this is a nice page here. Um, this is just nice eye candy, I think. Jay Lee is definitely into the splatter and spatter. I'd rather see a background. If you're gonna make it blank, I'd rather see the spatter and the spills and the drips than just like a color fade or a cop out. Like a screen tint. Here's some violence, some brutality. Here you got some Frank Miller, definitely influence. But Jay Lee's his own guy. He had Hell Shock, and I think Jay Lee was he also the one that did that other Sin City ripoff, Death something. What's the one? Oh, Death Blow. I collected.
That's Jim Lee. I think Jim Lee definitely initiated that character,
That was
and
Jim Lee. Okay.
Jim
Yeah.
Lee. But I don't. Maybe Jay Lee picked it up, like he got work on it or something. But Jay Lee was like, I think Jay Lee was probably one of the hottest comics towards the end of the '90s, comic book artists. And then that
This
boat
looks like a
away.
decent comic. This looks like a decent comic, and the colors aren't overwhelming, which is great. The colors are really complementary, which is great. Here he's doing like a Photoshop thing. That, it's noticeable. I mean, maybe this sets the mood that he's looking for, and then here it ends like that. I think he had a good run on Hell Shock. I want to say he did this for years and years, but here's number 4 for $1.95 in the year. Oh boy, 1994. This is in perfect condition too. So, when I was down in Florida, I've said this to you before, but when I was down in Florida, I could find almost every single Image comic for $1. Almost every single one, including number ones. I like Savage Dragon number 2 for sure. All the way up was $1. And I bought a few. I bought like Wildcats, all this stuff just to show it's all there. If you go to Florida, sitting in dollar boxes, including you can get Brigade number 1, you can get Glory number 1, you can get all of these Image comics number 1. Silver, what's his name? Silverhawk. You name it, and they're all there, every single one in the boxes in perfect condition for $1. And to me, that's an interesting commentary. You don't see that in New York, but down in Florida, there is a glut. And do I have time for one more, or should I end it there?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So these Red Circle comics are interesting because I think they're older characters that are being revived, and Red Circle might literally be a Martin Goodman
Archie
from the
it's
past.
Archie.
Oh, it's Archie.
Archie.
So Red Circle is, let's see, Red Circle. So this is called Blue Ribbon Comics number 2 from Red Circle Comics Group. And Red Circle Comics Group says 1116 First Avenue, New York, New York. Richard Goldwater, president and publisher. And then look, there's this guy, Silverclite. Michael I. Silberkleit, chairman and co-publisher. Michael I. Silberkleit are in those Martin Goodman books that I've read. He was
Really?
one of the guys. Martin I. Silberkleit was one of those Martin Goodman associates, and Red Circle was one of the imprints that they used to avoid responsibility when they were caught reprinting old material and selling it as new. And they got caught a couple of times by the Federal Trade Commission for doing that. Yeah. So Red Circle Comics now in 1983 is coming out with offices on 1116 First Avenue. And it's definitely not Madison Avenue where Marvel and DC and all the other ones are. And who still, I think Marvel Silverclight was one of the business names. He might be like a lawyer type guy. And this other name I'm seeing for president and co-publisher is Richard H. Goldwater. So I'm sure there's some history to this Red Circle Comics group, but it's usually good quality superhero stuff. I know they have the comic, and I've seen, so here they have Mr. Justice. And, I think these are old properties from the Martin Goodman days that they're saying, hey, I'll put this out again. I'll get some artists and we'll make a go of it. So this was like, after Atlas had done its thing. So now somebody else is coming out with Red Circle Comics and they're putting out stuff. So this is the art by a really good name, Trevor Von Eden, with Alex Nino. And I know that they've done plenty of stuff for Marvel, DC, for the magazines. Look at this art. This is great. This is good stuff. 1981. Come on. This is nice. 1983. And Alex Nino is one of the great mercenaries, one of the great Filipino mercenaries that I really admire his stuff. Look at these backgrounds.
Yeah.
These are basically just pinups. Like, is anyone going to read the story? I don't know, but this is great pinups. He's channeling Mike Kaluta here. He's looking at Joe Kubert here. He's doing all of this detail in these clouds. Somebody's coming in and coloring it all. Yeah, associate editor Bill Dubay and Michael I. Cyberfight. That's definitely a name from the Martin Goodman, Timely Comics, Atlas Comics, Marvel Comics, Pantheon. Here we're seeing a little maybe Jack Kirby influence. So this is a cool comic here. I like this. I'm going to pick up these Red Circles, or I'm going to at least give them a shot. I bought the comic before and a couple of the other ones. I would love to see the full discography. Not in love with the colors here. This is too colorful for me. And, they're not doing too much with the colors. But really interesting art, right? It's kind of like Nouveau art, I mentioned Kaluta before, but also P. Craig Russell. I see that influence in some of this stuff. I'm not sure what this character is supposed to be all about, Mr. Justice, but interesting story. And look at that. This page is nice. The colors here are better. Great stuff. Robin Snyder is the writer. Written and edited by Robin Snyder and Bill Dubay. Art, Trevor Von Eden and Alex Nino. And this is a pretty full comic. This is not, interrupted by ads. And here, let's see if there's any ads in the back for Red Circle Comics. Am I bad that I'm like enjoying the ads so much?
No.
Okay, Red Circle Comics Group coming in August. The Heroes of the 80s, they call it. Steel Sterling and the Shield. Or Shield. It's just Shield. It's not the Shield. It's Shield. And look at these names by Kanigher and Barreto, Kanigher and Nino. Great stuff. They were just hiring the mercs. Look at this cover for Steel Sterling. This is what I'm talking about with the contoured shading. I have to get a lot better at this. It's not shading actually. It's hatching, contoured hatching, right? Very, very deliberate, like neatly uniform strokes. Like every stroke is a performance, right? This is great. And who was better at this than my hero? Yep, Rudy Nebres. And this needs to be studied further. The way Rudy Nebres inks with contoured hatching style. So yeah, and this is in pretty good shape. I'm into the Blue Ribbon comics, and I'm into the Red Circle.
What year is that again? Sorry.
1983.
Huh.
1983. And here you can see, I didn't show this back cover. Oh, this is a wraparound. Come to find. Look at that. And you know who did this wraparound? Here it says right here, R. Buckler.
Ooh, rich.
Right? Another hired gun from 83, right? That's definitely a guy that was going back and forth between the Indies and Marvel and whoever would pay him a page rate.
Yep.
And good stuff. I love Rich Buckler.
Hell yeah.
He did Deathlock. He did a lot of things that we know and love. So Rich Buckler cover, Trevor Von Eden insides, Alex Nino inks, and then a couple of other titles done by Kanigher. I think his first name was Robert Kanigher, right? And then this Barreto, I think he was another one of the Filipino guys. But he was doing multiple titles for Blue Ribbon. And then this pinup is it's kind of a preview for Steel Sterling. A 32-page Baxter Collector's Edition by Robert Kanigher, there's the name, Louis Edward Barreto, and Tony DiZuniga. That's another name I recognize from those days. Great stuff. I think this is going to be the cover art, except it wasn't colored. And the cover art was done by somebody by the name of Weiss, and inks by Rudy Nebres, my guy. So, wow. Nice one. All right, I guess I'll go to this one. This is a weird one I picked up.
Yeah.
And this is definitely an exciting, shocking cover here.
A collar, though.
Empire of Blood, issue 2 of 4. And the comic company is called Graphic India. So I'm like, all right. Here the artist is credited as
Alcatina. Yeah.
Do you know Alcatina?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm working on getting him involved with Crom. Probably a cover illustration. Yeah, and some republishing of his work.
Yeah. Well,
he was in there was a short-lived Conan magazine series. I think they just called it Conan the Savage. I think about 13, 14 issues, and he did a run in those, which I'll tell you right now, that it jarred me. I was like, what the hell is this? But maybe by definitely third issue that I was like, I am totally sold. And he's Argentinian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's down in Argentina.
Alcatraz?
I had Loco Gonzalez. I had asked him if he was aware of Alcatina, and he said he was. So.
Where's Loco from?
Loco is Tom TC Pescatori. He's in Argentina.
Ah, okay, right. Yeah, maybe they've crossed paths. So this is coming out in 2015, and it's called the comic company is called Graphic India, and you see all these Indian names here. It's created and written by Arjun Raj Gain, with art by Enrique Alcatina from Argentina. And it looks like this is, it looks like they farmed out the art to this Argentinian artist, but everything else is from India. And here, check out what's interesting about this. Now, again, I disagree with them having bright white word balloons. I think that they should integrate them in and kind of like sink them more into the artwork, kind of tint them back. And I don't know why that isn't just automatic nowadays. But here you can see some really nice artwork, some really good, anatomy, proportion, but they're doing something interesting with these first couple of pages. You notice that it's, heavy black and white with all these sepia tones, right? And this is full color comics. They're purposely just using like these browns and oranges and sepias, right? And look how they're kind of combining it. So this is nice because you can come in after you pen and ink, and just use like maybe 2 or 3 colored pencils, and just go over it, right? You can see the strokes here of the colored pencil, but here it might be something a little more washy or markery, or maybe even some ink or something. Um, and they do this for a while, and then gradually, now the redcoats come in here, and these are, I guess, the British guys that are invading India, right? This is some kind of historical piece, some kind of like period piece, right? And I love the way that you introduce the red, kind of like interfering in this whole sepia world that they've been setting up. Isn't that an interesting move, right? Because these red coat bad guys come in, and these aren't Indian characters. These look like they're Caucasian. This guy and this lady, they look like they're blonde hair, blue eyed characters. But there's also these Indian characters here, right? That you can see using, native dress and everything. So here we get this like heartbreaking goodbye, and they're splitting up. He's giving her the MacGuffin, which looks like a handful of bullets or something. Then we get to these German-looking guys. I don't know if they're supposed to be British. I like this. These guys would have these bell helmets over their head with the big eye. So I think they're trying to kind of combine British imagery with Nazi imagery. Which is funny because the British and the Nazis were obviously on other sides. But I don't know if this is like, this is some kind of fictional, story set in India. Here we get some like steampunk kind of stuff going on with this thing. Um,
That's a bonkers story, man.
yeah, I know. I'm gonna interrupt this for an ad from Graphic India Comics for the Sadhu, Birth of the Warrior, superstar writer Chuck Dixon, and featuring a cover by Ronilson Frere. It doesn't say who the artist is, but yeah, this doesn't really capture me. Like, I don't, if it's not like the Birth of the Warrior, but they're showing just a guy with flowing robes. I don't know. Why would I care? Um, so anyway, back to El Cantera. He's got a great heavy metal style. He's got a great kind of like European style. He's definitely dialing in heavy metal and Mobius and guys like that. He's got his own thing going on. I love these very dynamic black and white, harsh kind of areas with shading and drapery and texture. Um, I think this is really good storytelling here. So I'm loving this. Graphic India Comics. But yeah, if you can nail down this guy, I mean, this is why they're using these guys, because they're not only great, but they work for less than the American counterparts, because the standard of living is in Argentina might be a little bit better than it is in New York or California or North Carolina, all the places that Americans are struggling to pay for housing and cost of living. Um, Graphic India Universe has an app you can download for iOS and Android, and I guess they're giving away some digital comics. It doesn't say anything about pay. It says download the app for free, and there's some stuff to see. Maybe that's worth doing. I don't know. This was 2015, almost 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago. So maybe this is like not even there anymore, or maybe it is. Who knows? But as I said before, I love going through the ads. So here is an ad for Mystery PI. And it looks like a private investigator whose face is carved up like some kind of New Zealand Maori tribe, but it looks like it's three-dimensionally carved. And he's also got vampire teeth. So is this a private investigator, or is this a bad guy? What's going on? Is this hair? Is this feathers? What am I even looking at? I don't even know. Here's an ad for Devi and Witchblade, the epic crossover, an ultra rare limited edition covers by Jenny Frison. So I don't know Devi, but she looks Indian. And then Witchblade, is that just an Image comic? That's just like an Image comic, right? Top Cow or something. So some kind of great crossover. And then here on the last page, it looks like just a spoof ad for Sandow's Tonic, the great health and strength restorer. So this is just kind of like a filler page. How we doing with Tom Cellini? Is he dialing in soon?
Yeah, we're
We're just
working on
waiting.
some fun technical.
Okay, no problem. We could figure it out. I'll do another one. Look at this. Kurt, have you in all your days ever seen something like this? This is a comic that opens up this way.
Whoa!
Have you ever? Now
No.
the artwork is standing up this way because obviously this is going to be in a box or on a stand with all the other comics. But then when you open it up, we're going this way. And so what am I even looking at? This is Echolands, and I can't get a name of the company yet, but it's J.H. Williams III, W. Hayden Blackman, Dave Stewart. I guess that's the guy from the Eurythmics. He hung up his guitar, and and Todd Clark. So,
That's good. That was good, Jake. That was good.
So I don't see any comic company here. And this is the inside page. So this just looks like Echolands. The comic is Echoland. And we're diving right in here in a widescreen format. Where we see a wizard here and this incredible sci-fi backdrop. The art is really detailed, but it's kind of herky-jerky a little bit, right? Especially the colors. Like there's too many colors here, and it's hard to focus on what's going on. So, in a good way, this really slows you down. But some of these colors don't look like they match, and maybe that's on purpose. Maybe there's like something interrupting the normal flow here. Oh boy. Okay, so now I turn the page. So now we're looking at long, wide panels, and they're not only doing it that way, but then they're going across right away. They're going right across both pages of the spread, right? To have this real sweeping horizontal. I mean, talk about your Panavision or what do they call it in motion pictures? Talk about your letterbox format or whatever. So this is reading not just across one page, but it's a reading across both pages. The way these panels go, boom, 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 boom. The art is kind of good. It's super detailed, but the coloring is very busy. And I don't know. I'm drinking it in right now. It's not so bad so far. The palette is kind of limited on this spread, but now on this spread we're going all over the place, and I'm seeing some effects that look like they're combining pen and ink with digital color with fully painted. Sometimes there's a holding line on these things, and sometimes there's not. So this really looks like a real mishmash. And I don't know what to think here. I see robots and regular characters all together, and I don't know if there's something I'm missing here between the tops and the bottoms. There might be something going on across the top that I'm supposed to read, and then the bottom is like a separate sequence. So this is very, very confusing. But the art's very nice. I keep saying Kaluta. I see some Kaluta influences in these artists. Up here, you got this painted effect. This looks a little bit like John Bolton to me when he's doing his painted stuff. And yeah, this is what I'm looking at. Like the top tier is one story, the bottom tier is another story. I don't know if that has something to do with the Echolands name, but we're seeing two different things in a very weird format. And let's just keep going here, right?
I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna talk to him on the phone. So
Okay, I'll just be here going through Echolands. So Echolands here has this very nice painterly style up here for these comics, and then down here it's this other kind of style which looks like kind of like giant robots and Gundams, and it looks a little bit like Mobius, but it's also very colorful. I mean, this this gets very, very high points for being imaginative, original, different, format breaking. Here, this dialogue keeps going on, and this man and this woman are just sitting in bed talking about their feelings or whatever. I love you, Core. Down here on the bottom, it's these robots that are talking in this robotic font. And, all of this kind of like supernatural, rainbowish, mystic stuff looks like it's happening. Artificial intelligence. We are sentient artificial intelligence in every reality, history, record, tale. We turn. It is written in our code in the stars. So yeah, this is this real kind of like basic organic, kind of like caveman looking, sequence, and then on the bottom this futuristic sequence. Very interesting here. What we're being asked to do, is like try to understand these two things at once. And I want, this is an interesting idea, like the duality of it all. Does this correlate somehow to what's going on here? We will destroy, raise, annihilate, terminate everything, right? There's some kind of like robot takeover scheme here. It kind of looks like the Sentinels a little bit. And then there's these humanoid people that have this messed up skin, all this stuff going on. Here, this person has a kind of like a robot arm, right? But I love the drawing of these characters, this artwork. Very, very classic kind of art style. I don't know. I still don't know what I'm looking at, but I can't stop. This lady has vampire teeth. She says, "You're finally showing some teeth. I can get behind that, sister. So I'll take you idiots to Horror Hill. We'll raise an army of the dead if we have to. And after we kill the wizard and his daughter, we'll never need to see each other again. Deal." So here you have all these different characters that look like they're being drawn by different people. I don't know if this is being done by committee and they're doing kind of like a Spider-Verse thing where everybody is like kicking in all these different styles and contributing in this, melange. But now we go, oh brother. So now we go here to this page. Now we're at the center spread. I can finally smell the corpse flowers in bloom. Now, why all of a sudden do we get to this guy who looks like he's right out of Jack Kirby's The Eternals? And who's this guy? He looks like, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or he looks like, Val Meyer's Frankenstein. And then on the bottom, we still have this robot guy talking with this other guy. And he's going to take off here for Flights of Fancy. This comic really has me guessing, like, what is happening here? All right, now we're changing format and we're going to 3 tiers, but we're still going across. See, we're going all the way from this page to this page, and I'm really at a disadvantage because I'm so not used to this. Oh my gosh. And the art is just so good. I mean, these look like they're like photo referenced. All these poses, just really good anatomy and style points here. And I can't figure out what's going on. Please, Romulus. Please, Romulus did this. Please, mercy, we serve you. See right here? And then what does he do? You're loyal to no one. Pop, pop, pop. He pops all their heads. So this guy's got a lot of power. And then father, Iris. And now we see this hand. And his daughter is Iris. I don't know if it's his daughter, but somebody. And it looks like her flesh is being eaten away. So what is going on with Echolands? And who is the publisher? All right, maybe we'll get some explanations. And finally, on this last page, the metaphysicist, E.E. Ah, faithful reader, we've just about had enough of me, haven't we? But you know the drill. The crystal ball is our sneak peek. And I see, well, of course, the dead will rise. They're off to Horror Hill after all. And then here, do we finally get an explanation of what's going on? This season, the Echo's own Alias 5 was afforded a rare opportunity to enter the citadel of Tiro Demon, the wizard, self-proclaimed leader and protector. So they're calling this the Echo, and a magazine for the open-minded. And they're pretending that this is a magazine, and they're not breaking the proscenium so that we can understand, oh, it's only one page of this. There's still no explanation of this company or anything. Here's another strip by Anton Veracruz. It's called Books Bounty. If we don't have it, it probably doesn't exist. Wine and cheese on every fifth night. 2 locations, North Bay and South Bay. We'll ship to anywhere in the known world. So these are like fake ads. Does your neighbor's child have mutations, blue scales, and magenta eyes? Failing to report your local magistrate can result in fines and imprisonment by decree of the wizard. So this is like they're setting up the world. And then here is the Sounds of Creation 5, J.H. Williams music playlist while working on this chapter. I've never seen this before. They're gonna list all of the songs that they played when they were listening, when they were making this chapter. Motorhead, Buzzcocks, Johnny Thunders, Susie and the Banshees, Uriah Heep, Arctic, the Black Keys, Brant Bjork, Chromatics, Dave Davies, Mission of Burma, and he's like red and white double vinyl. So you had to get up every 23 minutes and change the vinyl. Translucent vinyl, double vinyl. These guys are just showing off. Wow, and it keeps on going. The Dead Kennedys, Devo, Hawkwind, Mountain Witch, Pink Floyd, Jaco Pastorius. So this is this huge list of songs that he's playing, but he's showing off that it's all vinyl, blue vinyl, crystal clear vinyl, potato vinyl, silver vinyl. I don't get it. Somebody is like getting up every couple of minutes. Look at this. Just goes on like this. And he's writing down every song that he heard. Doesn't this take a lot of work? Oh my God. All right. Now, so Echolands, this is number 5. So now we can get maybe some clues. This round of letters to the Red Hood Club are being answered by J.H. I loved Echolands number 1. The book was, amazing as the book was, I really dug the sounds of creation at the end. As a musician myself, I appreciate seeing what music inspires others to create. I'm going to have to throw on one of those Bowie records and reread this along with issue number 2. Well, why don't these people just make a YouTube playlist? Because this was, I don't even know what year this was. So Echolands is proving to be quite a mystery. Now on issue number 2, they're answering questions about issue number 2. And this goes on for pages and pages and pages. Okay. Here they're previewing what's going on Echoland 6 in January. So this is an Image comic. Okay, I missed that. Oh yeah, there it is, right there. There's Image right there. I missed the whole time. I missed the logo. So they're doing something very interesting, the Red Hood Club. But I don't know how it all works with all the different styles. Echolands number 4, Raw Cut Edition, available now. Getting an eyeful is a massive understatement. I love looking at the drawings as they expand with more details emerging every time I look. Debbie Harry, Blondie. She's talking about Echolands. Here we go. What year is this? 2021. So this is apparently pandemic era stuff. All right. I learned a lot. Very, very interesting project. Kind of like overwhelming. Moving right along. Dead World number 13 by Caliber Comics. This is the later Caliber Comics, later logo. So we're looking at the year 1994. And this is a very thick book. Very thick book. So let's see what's inside. We have written by Randall Thayer, pencils by Mark Winfrey, first 20 pages, and then Chris Morea picks up for the last couple of pages. Inks by Frank Turner, and then Glenn Murphy for the last pages. And letters by Brent Carpenter, cover by Charles Yates. That's a Charles Yates cover. CY 94. All right, what's up with Dead World? So, really busy. Why? Here's a question. Why break up this panel right here if you're just going to show the mouth on the bottom? I don't like these horizontal lines that they use. This is a very Image Comics thing to just like break up these muscles and then just use horizontal lines. This is a Rob Liefeld thing and some of those other guys that I don't know where it came from. I wasn't a big fan. This I don't mind so bad. It's just like, putting like values in lights and darks. You have spot blacks, but then, you know, they automatically make these horizontal lines, and then they say, all right, we might make these tilted, cross hatches at a 45-degree angle, but and you only do it in some places. So yeah, like I don't know. To me, I'm just kind of unsettling. Not too much action going on here in Dead World, but here this freaky character, demon guy, is making some Doctor Strange hand motions, and then these spermy-looking snakes go up into the sky and make a little firework. And then when it comes down, this ink is kind of patchy. I don't know if this came off the press bad in 1994. It's kind of like a tentacle attack, and the demon's getting roped up, and so now they're fighting for supremacy of Dead World, I guess. Then we got some human characters here, some people running around. Now this is a
Hey,
copy.
Jake.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Tom. He's coming in
Okay.
now.
All right. I'm just wrapping up Dead World number
Cool.
13.
Let's let him let him in.
And let's say
see
hi
what
to
happens. Come on, Tom. There we go. Here he comes. Here he comes.
Did not miss a beat here.
He might be only by voice. There he is. There he is. Woohoo! We did it.
Sorry
Tom.
about all the trouble. Finally.
It's not you, buddy.
Welcome aboard.
It's definitely the world. So
the technology, right? So
it's technology, and I think, we were just talking on the phone, just tech support, moving from the phone to the laptop. I really do believe I'm going to send an email either today or tomorrow to Riverside and see if they can give me some link. But it seems like anybody who tries to come to us via iPhone, there's like no play. There's just for whatever reason.
Right.
There must be like some anti-love, with them. But man, you are here now, and we're super excited. So, how you doing down there? You got a lot of rain?
No, it's been overcast, and like this morning was like super black clouds and not good, but right now it's not so bad. I can actually
It's a nice dreary, fun Sunday afternoon. But just so everybody knows, this won't be a first time for Tom. This is his third time. And Tom owns a couple of comic book stores. Comics and Gaming is the one that I go and visit when I'm down that way. Bethany Beach, he's in Fenwick Island, north of Ocean City. But he's also the co-creator of Lost Landers, which I have actually the little mini you threw together for a con. That was last year, right?
Yeah, it was last year.
No, it says 2024 Ashcan. It must have been a little bit further.
Yeah, it's 24. Wow, guy, time flies.
Yeah, wow.
Because we're developing so much with the IP. It's just been like time is a weird thing for me, if that makes sense. Just because it's like I get used to things, and then it's like, oh wow, that was 2 years ago we started to get there.
It's the
But
slow grind.
it is a slow grind. I think this will work. So we had
Yeah,
talked
and
about.
also I want to there's, like I said, there's two other episodes. Actually, if you come to this episode, when I cut it out of this episode into its own freestanding one, and it'll be in the Tom will be in his own playlist because of the previous three times leading forward. But just last week, Jake and I brought up Ranger as
Oh,
like
nice.
one of the few comics that actually deals with the effects of the soldiers and what went on in Afghanistan. In contrast to like the way, let's say, entertainment was working off of the Vietnam War, and how we
Right.
got Rambo and so and so, the Deer Hunter, Apocalypse Now, and stuff. But yeah, we were chatting that up. But this is not your first time to the rodeo with
No.
Lost Landers, but we're excited to have you back as the writer, producer, creator of Lost Landers and other comics, but also as a comic book store owner. That was kind of like where you and I were chatting, and I said, man, it would be great to have a person from inside a comic book store talking about what it means to be
the madness of the madness of the last 6 years, and it's still, the industry is still going to be in flux for another 6 months to a year. I don't know if you saw, but Marvel lost people that have been with them a long time in layoffs recently. David Gabriel, the VP of sales, who'd been with them 22 years, is no longer there. A bunch of their editors are not there anymore. I feel like that cut was all based on Marvel nor Disney likes to be number two, and right now DC is beating them pretty bad with Absolute and a couple other things. And so we'll see what happens, what comes from that, and the distributor wars keep getting more interesting. Universal's getting bigger and better every day. They've been the distributor in Canada for 3 decades for all comics, and then a little bit over Europe as well. And they have DC, which was supposed to be the exclusive with Lunar, and then now Image is no longer exclusive with Lunar. So
it's a little buggy.
Did we just drop out of it? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just a signal.
That soon they have Dynamite and.
Yeah, we just lost you for a second. You were saying that some of the companies are no longer exclusive with Lunar, and then we lost you after that.
Yeah, so DC is not, and then Image announced the beginning of this month in April that they.
Yeah, it might be connection.
So, okay. So can you hear me again? Sorry, guys. I don't know what's it's
Maybe
technology today.
It's because it's raining. That's what it is. That it's a Sunday, and everybody and their mother is podcasting.
So I did send you
turning off the video. Would that help? Just have audio.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, if you want to turn your video off, it might make it a little easier on you just for the talking part.
Oh, now I got to figure that out. That's Okay, we'll see if that runs smoothly now.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's see if that helps. Yeah.
I did send over just a second ago to your Instagram page. I sent over a cover for what was going to be our free comic book day, but it's going to be more of a free book that we're going to give out all this summer. It's the first 15 pages of the Lost Landers ongoing series. It's drawn by Pop Non. And then so I gave you a page, and then I gave you partial of the cover. Plus, there's a new statue that we're about to put out. That's giant, nice. 2 feet, 2.5 feet big. And then the little flesh-colored dunks, which is going to be a Muscle Man style figure that's in production right now. That we shall hopefully have the first pack of 3 with a couple other characters, by the end of summer. So we're doing a couple of things
So
with
why don't we start with Lost Landers? Yeah, Lost Landers as your because you have a partner in with Dorian, Guy Dorian Senior. But go, let's because I'm actually flipping through the ash can, which I think you put this together like within weeks before you hit. Was it Baltimore Comic Con or?
Yeah, it was Baltimore. I literally put it together 72 hours and got it the
Oh yeah,
day
there you
of
go.
the first day of Baltimore. So
Yeah,
it was crazy. I just wanted to showcase his art and Walt Simonson, even though you don't read the script, but that was his story that he wrote that's in the first trade. And just kind of get a preview for people. Lost Landers is basically about if ancient hominids didn't go extinct, how would they evolve? What would their societies be like? And could they be hidden on the planet? And so we explore all of that and deal with real things that existed in our past and have a lot of fun with it.
And so this is literally just coming out in recent weeks.
Yeah. So the trade, we fulfilled the Kickstarter on it, and then now we're getting that into stores, and then sometime I would probably think June, we will have issue 1 solicited, and it's going to be a monthly comic series, and then we're going to offer the trade as well for retailers to buy. I'm going to start growing the IP.
Right on. So you're gonna be able to keep up with a monthly schedule.
Yes. So
Wow.
my thing that I always do when I publish is I want 3 issues done before we solicit issue 1.
Right.
That
And then you'll
90-day window.
try and make a go of it sustainably, producing and creating with a little bit of a buffer.
Correct.
Right. And
You have to.
what's your involvement in the creation? Are you just a publisher, or are you hands on with the stories and the dialogue and stuff like that?
So Guy and I basically go back and forth as far as when this was started creation and building the world. And what I get to do is we've worked on the characters together. We created the characters. We get basic plot lines, basic stories, and then I get to expand that and find neat things for our characters to interact with. So as I said, I dig a lot into real science, real history, and then just make it fun. For the comic series, the ongoing series, there's really Guy and I basically plotted out, the first basic rough, 2 or 3 seasons of what would be, an animation series if we get there, and
Yeah.
from that, myself and I have my son who gives us feedback and ideas. I mean, he is reading the most amount of comics out of everybody involved. He probably reads, 80 to 100 new comics a week in trades. Like he's crushing it. So
Yeah.
he's relevant for what the younger generation. And then Jay Batista, who's a writer and a world developer, he did a bunch of stuff for Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, like Oriental Heroes and Kara, and like things that sold hundreds of thousands of copies. So he is definitely a world builder. And then a guy Matt Amling who's done a couple little independent, not comics, but like novels, and's been a fan. So we have these writing meetings, and we just basically uh, we've been fleshed out, a long, much longer than 3 issues. I can tell you that, and it's kind of a fun, unique way to do it. Most sitcoms, most movies, most everything, you have more than one writer. So
Yeah.
we just kind of do our subplots, our plots, and the way we write, and then we go over it and add to it, edit, and then we have one of us will script the issue, and then the other ones we kind of all pick it apart and see what works. Does it have the right pacing? And then art comes along, and you got to go back and you got to look at everything again. A prime example is the first 2 pages that are in the free book that's coming out
Oh,
are the last pages in that book. If you can flip towards the end, you can find it in the
oh, okay.
trade. And what I realized is like those two pages, right? So if you've read this trade, you already know who those characters are. But if you're picking up issue one or the free comic we're giving out, you don't know their names. You don't know who some of them are. So like that was like when we were going through the free book, and I was like, wow, if you're starting this from the beginning, you don't and you've never seen these characters, you don't know who they are. We're like, oh, we got to fix that for the comic series. So there's always a lot of rewrites and edits
Yeah.
just to make the project better.
Right. Right. And it's funny when you talk about like getting all the ideas together, and then somebody is the scribe, and you're writing it all down, and then somebody's got to come around and make it a full script. Um, I was watching a podcast yesterday with the Matt guy that does the comic stuff, and he was going over like the workflow for John Byrne and Chris Claremont during their famous X-Men run. And I had no idea, but he said that they were completely doing the Marvel method, where they would have a meeting and they would talk about what goes on in the comic. Then John Byrne would do all the pages and bring it back to Chris Claremont, and he would add the dialogue and narration after the fact, just like Stan and Jack Lee were doing. Stanley and
Yep,
Jack Lee were doing.
I think every comic I've published and worked on, we basically now why there are panels and there are ideas for the artists. I always say it's a sequence of events, and you have to trust the artist you're working with. Some of the more independent guys, I was really hands on with the layouts, and basically editing the layouts and helping that with both Guy and Popmon. Like, I mean, they're both 30 plus year professionals. The guy's
Yeah.
almost at 40 years at this point. And so, like, you get their layouts back, and, we do talk about them, and we get to, but like in general, they know what they're doing. And, what I tell both of them is have fun with this. Like, if you're not having fun with this, then there's a bigger problem. So I'm going to trust your expertise, your experience, and your knowledge. And it's just it works out. It works out really really well. And so I would think that those are more the Marvel methods. Guy did a lot more layouts, but if you look in the collection, there's the Colton story where he's fighting the Yeti, and basically, yeah, that one right there. You just next page, if you turn it one more. That's the story that Pop drew for that trade. And I literally gave him the Marvel style. We didn't script this till the end. He got plot points, and like the next page where the fight's happening, I was just like, have fun. I want to see his weapon used. I want to see, that. And he came up with that. And the following page where this Yeti's falling off the cliff, and this crazy like facial expression on the right page, first panel, like that's great. We just got to have fun with things. But yeah, that's definitely the Marvel style.
Yeah. Good to know. And so since you're a publisher, you, I guess, are always on the lookout for art. Are you on the lookout for new up and coming artists, or are you just kind of like working with people that you already know in kind of like a closed circle?
I don't think closed circle. I mean, I think that there are uh, definitely groups I've worked with over the decades. So I have a lot of Filipino artists that work with me, and then I have a couple guys in Spain that I worked with me, and we're 20 years with both those groups. And so it's cool. COVID, I lost a good friend and mentor for the Filipino artist, a guy named Jeffrey Hewitt, passed away. And if you remember Planet Hulk, he inked all Planet Hulk for Marvel. He inked Ultimate Iron Man, a bunch of stuff. And he was a mentor to all these up and coming artists. And he was a way to communicate and a little bit better with some of them. And he brought a lot of people that I've and I miss them. Like, that was a very big loss for their community.
Hmm.
But often you get guys that are, especially there, that are teams and working together, and
Mm.
yeah. So, but in general, yeah, I look for new people, and I look for stuff, and it's hard because if you've never had to meet deadlines and do it, it's those those sometimes very talented people don't ever get things finished. That's, is that a nice way to put it? Like,
It's a professional way.
yeah, way. Um, but it's frustrating, like the book Dream Runner. I had a buddy, Donnie George, who was going to he penciled the first three or four um, issues when we were younger, and he went to art school and stuff like that. And then when I tried to get him to do like sorry, page, not issues, and then when I tried to get him to do an actual series and do it, he just couldn't make any of the deadlines. And so Jaime Martinez kind of filled in. And this book is cool because it goes to a different painted style and art style in the dream world. So if you keep flipping through that, yeah, there you go.
Right.
I mean, it just jumps out, and that's Santiago Ramos, who's actually coloring the Lost Lander. So full circle. I mean, that was 2013. It's 2026, and I guess he technically colored that in 2012. Those painted pages, but now he's coloring Lost Landers.
And those painted
The
pages
new,
are full color originals that just photographed and printed.
yep. So yeah, so he's in Spain. He's a talented artist, and he just gets stuff over, and it's unique, So
Yeah, it's a shame that America cannot sustain somebody working in the comic book industry, at least as not as easily as these other countries where the cost of living is lower. I mean, if you're getting a very high page rate, maybe you can do it, but these guys have a competitive page rate, and they're doing top notch, work at the same time.
so the problem with the industry, it's a problem with government. In terms of government employees. It's the same thing with giant corporations. You have so many middlemen, and what I mean by that is management of all different levels, right? And they all have to justify their position. So the end worker at the bottom, or working their way up, they get pittance what's up top. And we see it in comics. We see it in um, Magic the Gathering, for example, which is
Yeah.
Hasbro's billion-dollar brand. A couple years ago, the guy that's president of Hasbro right now, probably shouldn't say this, probably get myself in trouble if he hears it. He was the president of Wizards before he became the full president of Hasbro. He got a $15 million bonus. His second in command got a $9 million bonus right at Christmas, December. It's a December, right during the holidays. And they said they paid themselves $24 million of profit bonus to themselves, and they let 500 employees go the same week.
Whew.
Like
Yeah, and
like
big
so yeah, go ahead, sorry.
well, there's just I was maybe you have something to add about this, but there's big news this week about Disney in Burbank and letting go. They're doing massive cuts and restructuring, and they're decimating Marvel's what do they call it? Image production team or something. Basically the artists that have been working to make the blockbuster movies for the last 10 years have all been let go, and they're still going to be working, but they're going to be like on a freelance basis, which is more advantageous to the company than it is to them. Maybe now they don't have benefits, maybe now they're not getting anything for a 401k, and
No,
that was
yeah,
go
they're
ahead.
just a contractor. So if you're making 100 grand as a salary, now you are getting 100 grand as a 1099 contractor, you can say 30,000 of that 100,000 is just going to go into taxes now.
Yep.
So like you lost a ton of money. If you
And
flip
another
back to
30,000 for health insurance.
well, yeah. And then there's that. Well, health insurance is outrageous. So, and I also think that a lot of the corporations, as been the big push for AI, they think they can do more with it, and that people won't push back with bigger movies or bigger shows that have a lot more AI in it. And part of that is the public in general. Like when you have AI generated comedy skits and are branded and they're getting 15, 20 million views and they're getting shared all over the place, it's just telling the people like, oh, well, if this is going to work, that the average person doesn't really care that it's AI generated. The artists, people like ourselves that create and understand and can see it for what it is, we know it's bad, but the average person, I don't think cares.
Well, they don't
And
know.
I think
There's no understanding / appreciation for it, because at the end of the beginning and the end of every day for an artist, it's entertainment. You've got the
correct.
greatest
Yep.
life for a layperson. You've got the great, when you say, oh, I'm an artist, or I'm a comic book artist, or I'm an animator, or something like that, people immediately go, oh, I would work for half of what I'm making right now to have your life. Because the fantasy
Right.
is, you just do what you want to do when you want to do it, and it's all magic and it's all easy and stuff to that extent. And yeah, there is if there is a topic to have on a greater sense of like let's just stay in the pool of comic books, is getting people to really appreciate it. And there are, and I think indie comics really pulls people in that have that trait where they go, I'm not a writer, I'm not an artist, but I have these ideas and stuff, and all of a sudden I'm gravitating to your work because. But for the most part, it's, entertain me. Please entertain me. Or no, God damn it, if you don't entertain me the way I want, I'm just going to go and find something else.
Right. So if you go, you're looking at Ninjas vs Zombies. If you flip back to the credits in the beginning of the book, so this is when we talk about like talent and how they move on. And I've been lucky enough to work with them. So the colors on that book his name was Alejandro, right? If
Yeah.
you look up right now, and this was that was put together like, I don't know, 2009, 2010 time frame.
11.
Alejandro is the biggest DC colorist for the last like 6 or 7 years. He's doing everything. If you just Google Alejandro and then DC colors, you'll see thousands of credits. And so you get to see some of his early work of coloring stuff. So it's really, really interesting. And it's been fun to watch people really become successful and, know that I gave them a little bit of, survival money early on in their careers,
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
this
I
is a
think
great
I've
work.
heard that name.
Yeah.
And what is going on? Do you know what's going on in general with the print divisions of Marvel, DC, Image? I mean, are these companies just surviving, or are they making money?
I think the mentality on a lot of them is what property can we sell to Hollywood for a TV show, an animation, a movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of the funding that goes back and forth. I will say, and this is interesting. I'm not a fan of the current price of comics. The average comic is $5 now, and with a lot of variants being $6 to $10. And there's a lot of $10 comics that come out a month. So if you're uh, have $20 to spend on comics in a week, you might be able to get 3 or 4 comics. I mean, that's, to me, that's lunacy. And I just don't think it's proportional. And people will say, well, when comics were $1 or $1.50 or 75 cents, or that $20 wasn't as much. But I was like, it hasn't come up that far. It hasn't increased 5 times, nor has the average wage. When I was a kid, minimum wage was $7. It's 15. So that dollar comic or that 75 cents comic should be like $2, but instead it's 5 and 6 and 7 more and more.
Well,
Um, and
apparently there's
so
a I mean, it seems like they're trying to build in this collectors market where they think people are going to buy the special editions and the special covers.
They
So
do.
is that just not happening, and they're just not like anticipating who their real audiences are?
Well, so there is a speculator and a collector's market for that you're talking about, but I'll touch on this briefly, but I do want to get back to cover price because it's something I'd never talked to you guys about.
Hmm.
Um, with the publishers doing multiple covers, a retailer has a certain amount they can budget, right? So it's about taking up space on a wall or
Yeah.
taking up now it's taking up the budget of the store. Like if they gonna order 10 copies of a title and there's 7 variants, and they're done by people that are collectible, like Scotty Young. People like his covers. They like Peach Momoko. They like Frank Miller, even though his art is not where it was. People want to buy that. So
Yeah.
what it does is it eats up and takes the majority of the room from the budget for the store. Where in the 80s and 90s, it was okay, we had 30 titles, but if I'm Marvel and I go up to 60 titles, now I'm encroaching what Image or DC can put on the shelf. So it
Yeah.
was a quantity blitz. But now it's kind of like a cover blitz, but it's the same thing. I
Huh.
want to go back to cover price, right? Now I know what it costs to print a comic. I know what it costs to do all that. And the argument that we hear all the time is that the higher price points is because it's so expensive. Um, and I don't, I think that that's not true at all. I think what's more true is all the extra layers in a corporation or things. It needs more uh, profit, to pay those things.
Yeah.
Not even net, just more gross profit. And I think the argument is to raise the price.
The cover price, yeah.
And there's retailers that I argue all the time comics to be like manga, all 9.99, because they got to pay their overhead, they got to pay their employees, they got to pay their insurance, they got to pay their rent, all those sort of things. And they feel like, well, if I'm selling, if guy's buying 10 books a month, if the price all of a sudden went from $5 to 3, he's still going to only buy those 10, or maybe he only buys 12.
Right.
So their revenue gets cut. I just come from the philosophy of you need to make it affordable to make it generational. You got to get it in people's hands. And I've always talked about print advertising, and I've argued about print advertising. And the Adam Freeman just made the top 50 in his comics magazine, which is very reminiscent of the old Wizard magazine in a comic book style. And him and I argued about print advertising for a lot. And he sold a lot of advertising in his books and is doing well for him and will continue to do well for him. And I think the big companies and the advertising, they haven't figured out that comic books since the 30s were full of ads, and you need to put them full of ads. And what they become, ads in modern comics, are ads for other series that they're publishing, and that's
Yeah.
not revenue space. It's not it's not really an ad revenue generation. They'll say, well, people will see it and want to go to. No, that if you're a fan of DC Comics or Marvel Comics, you know what's coming out.
Yeah.
So putting multiple ads in all your books for another title, I don't think helps you. I think the letters page helps you. I think an editorial page helps you. But more importantly, you just take advertising, and
I mean, it's great like, 20, 30 years later when we're flipping through the ads, because then it gives us a sense of what else the same company is putting out, especially for a lot of these smaller indies. I love flipping through the ads and seeing all their other titles and characters because, they're all gone, and, and we're just mining the history. But yeah, for nowadays, if it's not like an outside company, like, like Hasbro or Hostess cookies or or soda or something, then it's they're it's not really a revenue generator. It's just taking up space to promote your other stuff. So
I mean, I'm not saying you can't do an ad to showcase some of your other titles or characters and stuff like that, but a typical, obviously it's 32 pages is the average format of a comic, and it's typically 22 or 23 pages. So you have 9 other pages. So you have a credits page and you have that sort of stuff. But you're really left with like 7 or 8 solid pages. Now, what do you do with those pages? What you find in the modern comic is they're all advertising other stuff that they do. They're not seeking out other other ads, and I think that that's a detriment because I feel like a book can be profitable before it ever goes to print or sold to a retailer if you do your job right. It's just salespeople and the
and you can track those
it's
things
just
nowadays. You can use QR codes and you can do all kinds of website stuff where you can really track to find out if someone's coming to you from a particular comic advertisement. So it's not like
100%.
Yeah.
So like Mars put M&Ms on the back of Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Every couple of months, it's like the back cover is Mars, right? So there's obviously some revenue being generated there, but the fact there's never a QR code, there's never an ad, there's never, and all it takes is it's like there's a coupon for a special pizza delivery or whatever, or I just it's not it's.
Isn't it though?
It's not putting any real thought into it. It's
But it's
terrible.
like, yeah, but yeah, at the same time, it's like, are we being taken serious? Like, you go back to the corporate elite type, the all the middle management and everything that's over the top of just said artists wanting to make comics, publishers wanting to publish comics, and readers wanting to read comic books. Are we really being taken seriously by the corporations? Like, or just like, let's say, business minded individuals that are looking at, should I pay two people to go out and find, let's say 300, not even like $150,000 worth of ad revenue, for our 15 titles, that type of thing. And maybe in that boardroom, there's like something you get moaning and groaning, and then somebody goes, well, what's going on there, Roger? I don't know. I just don't think anybody takes comic books seriously anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's so. The weird part about that is I could say that comic books weren't taken serious 20 or 30 years ago. I don't think I don't well ever, but I don't think as much now. So because the corporations understand the value, the merchandise, like things are bought in this industry for brands, and it's not because the comic part of it, it's because of the character and the merchandise, and they can sell the t-shirts, the underwear, the spoons, the cups, what everything else that comes with it. And so, that's what creates some of the real value. And obviously movies and shows and, have dominated for a very, very long time. And it ain't slowing down. The boys are still doing well. Invincible's huge. And there's just going to be a new thing like that all the time.
Yeah.
The closest we can see is our type of art form taken serious would be the Japanese market in regards to manga. They have every type. It's taken more of a serious art form, where this was just throwaway entertainment printed on terrible newsprint.
They've got the next generation of American children, because I teach middle school, and I see it like it's on their minds. They know all these characters. They feel connected to these characters. Like they're asking me, can you make me a printout of this, or can you make me a poster of this? And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Oh, they're like, oh, it's so and so from JJK or Death Note or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm learning, but in a way that you don't see them, like they don't know who like Green Lantern is anymore, but they know who these manga characters are. So they've
well, I mean. You're right. They do know the manga, and they know the manga because they're streaming the cartoon series and making live action movies about it, and that helps it tremendously. The amount of people that have come in to buy Walking Dead comics and the people that have come in to buy the Boys trades or Invincible trades because of the success of their shows are incredible. That's not happening in the with the traditional superhero, and I think the problem with that is that we're not getting enough of the younger audience that will again, I go back to generational profitability and affordability, right? So how many people our age, watched the X-Men cartoon series, watched the Batman cartoon series, that was, all these things that they were defining, and that, kids started at all ages, whether they were a teenager, whether they were 5 6, those shows hooked generations that eventually, bought the comics and carried on. And that's why when Disney did X-Men, whatever, 97, or
Yeah.
the cartoon series, it crushed it. But they're so dumb that they don't realize that they need to be doing that with the other characters and the other things that are relatable.
Yeah.
And you need other products to bring people in to find those characters. Um, the fact that we missed, the industry missed so much with not having like a Paw Patrol comic book, or right now, how do we not have a Super Mario Brothers comic book? How do we not have a
Right.
Legend of Zelda comic book, or Donkey Kong, or Sonic, or like, well, I guess Sonic is, does come
They
come
have
out. So, but like,
some.
there's so many things that aren't here, or an American Pokemon comic. They would sell millions and millions of copies of that,
Yeah.
and
Just through grandmothers alone.
so I can tell you, I've had conversations with people that run some of the biggest independent companies in comic books, whether they're the number 4 or 5th company, and I always go to Pokemon and Mario, and they always tell me, well, they want absolute enormous amount of money for the license, and I'm like, well, yes, you don't think you can turn that into a Dogman and sell 60 million copies in a 5-year span for a license? Like, give
Yeah.
me a break. Like you're just you're too scared. You're not financially set up right. You don't have the forethought, and then I go back to, well, Viz Media has Mario manga, has Zelda manga, like, and it's been around, and stuff that was printed and stays in print for decades keeps selling, and
Yep.
always ends up on top selling lists. Like, you're just not doing it right. And part of it also could be, in order to uh, not negotiate, because that's a bad word, in order to like land those types of deals, you have to go in with a different mindset. You can't sit like in an American boardroom style and try to get one of those license, because it's just a different culture, and like, you have to be able to resonate with your pitch, or you're trying to get the license. I think all that plays a factor too. But it's absurd, like the fact that nobody's done a Pokemon American style comic is just, it would be unbelievable amount of money.
When I when I'm
But
digging, when I'm in comic stores, I just came from I just stopped into comic stores in Orlando, Virginia, and North Carolina, and Daytona, and on my spring break. And so I was there for a couple hours digging through crates and trying to find good dollar comics. And I can't tell you how many parents came in with and without kids, but they were asking, "What have you got for kids? What can I buy my kid? I have no idea where to start." I've heard that multiple times. And then you also see them coming in with the kids, which is crazy, because then the kids go really wide-eyed and they want this and that and this and that. They know what they want when they see it. But it's funny to hear parents coming in asking the retailer, like, what do I get my kid? Like, they don't know their kid, and they want the retailer to say what they should get. So it's funny, and the retailers will suggest whatever they have,
Right.
what's new, or something like that. They do a good job of that. But parents, how about parents today? Like, you gotta you got to keep up with what your kid is watching and doing and everything, and then you know what they're interested in. Like when it comes time for presents, birthdays, Christmas, all that stuff, right? I mean, the kid's only going
Yep.
to get
And
older
then
and
there's
older.
right, and then there's just this thought that like when characters get hot in the comics, they overdo it. But characters that get popular, like Deadpool's super popular, you can do like there was a Spider-Man Deadpool kids comic that came out, and then there was a Venom Spider-Man comic that came out, and I mean years and years ago. And I ordered as many as I could afford to keep as long as I could, because the kids were coming in after I don't understand why the parents would bring a 10 to 14-year old to some of those movies,
Yeah,
but they were,
yeah,
and like that product
because they
wasn't
want to see.
that we had was even more adult. And so the fact that I had an option to show them something, or a younger kid that hadn't seen the movies, but just everybody talked about it, wanted to be the cool thing, you had something you give that kid. It's just there's a lot of problems in the industry. We could talk about it for weeks on end.
Yeah.
And I just I do my best to carve out my little world and try to keep moving forward. And
Yeah, there's a
and
lot of change happening right now in the last I would say like what's your take on the new acquisition of DC, because the Time Warner deal went through, um and that's going to be I think the Ellison family now is going to be the ultimate controller. Do you have any thoughts on how that might affect um DC?
I don't think it matters for comic. I think when those properties are picked up like that, and DC's been changed hands a lot of times, I think on the top, it's not about the floppy comic. It's about what can we license, and that's what Disney's all about, licensing. What can we do with these characters to make us the most amount of money? And honestly, like the deals aren't necessarily for profitability a comic book. It's a Batman t-shirt with a logo, a Superman t-shirt with a logo. you know those have been popular for 80 years. So like, um I don't think the day to day will
It's
change much.
free advertising.
I think the bigger change we should talk about is we should talk about what the first Saturday in May is. What's the first Saturday in May?
Free comic book day.
Well, if you're DC and Image and everybody else, that's
Right.
what it is. But if you're Boom, now Oni, Marvel Comics, Dark Horse, your comics giveaway day.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like you have something that's been an institution for free comic book days, and Penguin Random House doesn't want to play with the rest of the industry, and that's a problem. They have exclusivity on Marvel, and I wish executives in Marvel would realize their idea about doing comics or distributing comics uh, is not. They don't understand the community. They don't understand the culture. They don't
Yeah.
understand how changing it to comics giveaway day and trying to rock the system is good. Maybe it's things like that is why Marvels have been in second place for so long. They were in first place other till they left and became exclusive with Penguin. Just food for
Yeah,
thought,
but that was
if anybody in
also
Marvel's here, I
was that
mean,
also related to Diamond going belly up?
yeah. So I mean, no. Basically, the change with Diamond, happened during COVID when DC left, and then I said a year later that Marvel would leave, everybody trying to find better deals, and Penguin Random House a year later took over exclusivity on Marvel Comics, into 21 going forward. And it's Penguin Random House, has a lot of issues. They're really good, I guess, for distributing to bookstores and doing that stuff, but they definitely don't understand comics. You
Yeah,
and the free comic book day is the prime example. They don't understand the history and what it means, and little to no effort. Like the Comics giveaway day is using the same thing Free Comic Book Day is done. The color of the logo or the color of the words are whether they're for all ages, whether they're for mature, whether they're for teenagers. So they're just emulating it with a different name. And then it's like, everybody knows the four letters of Free Comic Book Day put together, as an acronym, and you put the, Comics Giveaway Day and you Google that acronym and it's an autoimmune disease, like I think that the fact that that's correlates to me is it tells me that, what they're doing is just bad. It's not good for you. And, it's, and any exclusivity I think is bad. I think you should have distributors and let the retailer decide what distributors they want to use. It encourages them to do better. And as I said, the giant corporations have, you know, over time gotten rid of the best things for comic retailers. DC used to have this incredible uh, co-op program where, let's say, I wanted to run an ad in a new Batman movie that was coming out, and all that, Tim Burton and the stuff after that came out. You earned a percentage of what you bought from them, and they would either pay for your full advertisement or at least half of it. So if I wanted to do a mailer, let's say, come visit my store, put them on a newspaper ad or a movie ad, they would pay for it. Sometimes all of it because you could earn enough if you were buying enough. And that just helped. They cared. One of the first times that they got bought out and sold, that was one of the first programs they got rid of. And, it's going back to Free Comic Book Day. I still have a problem that the comics aren't free to retailers. And that the people that are coming in, especially the people that want one or two or three of every one of your Free Comic Book Day, don't understand that those books cost you 25 to 40 cents a piece.
I saw
for me,
I
it's my
saw a lot
biggest
of them in
awakening.
my travels. I saw a lot of Free Comic Book Day comics in the bins.
Yep. So, but it is just one of those things. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think it's big in personal companies that have lost touch with retailers and how important retailers are because they're just some distant corporation and with IP and lawyers and stuff. Um, but yeah, I keep watching to see because for a long time Disney got a lot of credit for the way they monetized Marvel and Star Wars characters in new ways that hadn't been done before. Um, but you know they go through cycles, like different CEO or different board of directors, and then they go in different directions. Right now it looks like they're cutting ties with a lot of their full time employees. That's going to be a backlash. A lot of those people are going to, you know, they're going to jump ship and go to right to the competitors, or maybe they'll start up, their own collectives and stuff. Um, but they still have, this pantheon of characters that are thousands of them that are just sitting there waiting to be used. And there's so many creative people that are looking to get an audience and looking to get their name on something. It's just such a shame that they can't see how to be matchmaker for for creative projects
one
so
of
that
the
they
one of the things I think Tom's bringing to the conversation is, and when Tom and I get together and chew the fat, he does say a lot of things that I don't want to just say for him, so I'll allow him to speak for himself. But the last conversation we had, Tom, what really struck me in leaving was less about you making a comic and more you building an IP, but the IP being part comic, and then the figures. I pulled these out. This is still like running. This is still like, for I think in a logical sense of somebody getting involved in making comics, that just big window that this is the end game. And I would like you to speak to, the building an IP, building a property that has fundamentally a chance in the long run than just, hey, I've made a comic book. Don't you want to read it? And retailers, don't you want to buy it?
I think the hardest part of that is um, picking what your end goal is. So with Bamco, I want, and especially Lostlanders, I want a property that there's products and there's characters for all ages and can grow. It definitely has like that 80s and 90s, a little bit of nostalgia, but I'm trying to modernize it. And it comes with, well, where are there gaps right now? There are no toys for kids to play with. They're not. They're just
Yeah.
the toys that are
There's
produced right now,
plushie.
and they
There's
call
plushie.
action figures. Like I remember they're just all this articulated and they look great, but they're not toys that kids play with. They're not the stuff that from the 60s through the 90s kids played with, and we've lost that. So I think that the idea of creating a property that will eventually put toys in kids' hands so they can use their imagination and pretend, I think it's very important. um, Originality is tough too. You have to, there's always inspirations for characters. There's always inspirations for things. So world building's really, really important. Um, but I think, in the end, it's for the consumer and for the retailer, you have to just be in front of them. I mean, we've been slowly, and I mean slowly, when almost every comic convention that I set up at, there's been a Lostlanders or a Bamco stuff hidden, or but all throughout the stuff, and people see it and they start to recognize it, and we're trying to do more and more of that. But I think you just have to know what your target is and where you want to go. It's more than just, okay, well, I created some heroes and I have a basic story, but what are you trying to do with it? What's that audience that you want? The Ranger audience, that book, has a little bit of nudity and has some swear words, and it has subjects that are very, very tough to deal with: loss of life, drug addiction, people that are crippled for the rest of their lives, and the true evil that kind of can go on. Well, kind of, it does go on in the real world, right? And so there's real places, real settings, real stuff that's happened that is in that book. And that's not a that's more of a niche market. The people that are going to read it, that are interested in it, are very, very different than a superhero book or a horror book. And so I think when you're creating a property, you just need to know what is your target audience, what would you want to do with it, and also where can you grow. And so Ranger, that's 6 issues. We developed 25 for it, and then the guy that I worked with, we said, okay, well, if let's say Netflix picks it up, right? um what other stories can you tell in between the main story arc? Typically about 25 issues is like one season of the show, whether it's animation or live action. And so it's like, how do you if my start to finish is 25 issues, how do I expand it? Well, you go back and you define who more of the characters are. So in Ranger, it was Rowena, who's the reporter. What made her want to go on the front lines and dig and do the things that can typically get you killed. There's a character, Dawood, who's from Chicago, and he's dealing drugs for the CIA in Afghanistan and dealing with the Russians and other people. As intel. I mean, that stuff happens. That's not, so it's what are their backstories and how do they get there? So how do you expand upon that? And that's
But
all
this is,
world building.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this as a package, if you will, for development towards television, movies,
Yep.
animation. You've done a lion's share of the work, like
Yep.
the thing. It would just be, and I'm leading you into the question of like, was there ever a period of time, and did you spend time shopping this to
No,
said media?
no, I haven't. I wanted to put the next couple books out, but
Hmm.
the answer is that I think over time as I do more things, and I've definitely gotten a lot of exposure with Lost Landers, even though I've been in the industry for 30 years doing this,
Hmm.
because of the people that I'm working with.
Yeah.
When the cover of a book, says Walter Simonson or Louise Simonson or Chris Royale or Popmont or and Guy Dorian, who's again been done that stuff. It just opens doors. So maybe down the road, I'm definitely not opposed to it.
Right.
But it would be somebody that has to be able to give it an authentic feel, because it's the ultimate sacrifice a soldier gives is his life
Right. Right.
for,
Right.
for our freedoms. So
Right. But to tag the topic earlier about the larger corporations just really making things to then get optioned,
right,
let's say, because that's a for the definitely a dark horse and down, so many of the publishers that have been coming out of the woodworks for the last 10, 15 years, contractually, when you signed to get published with them, was that Scout Comics was the one that kind of got the ugly punch
yep,
in the face from the creators, because they weren't getting paid, but they were getting optioned, and then they
right,
weren't getting, that was that whole. So it was less about it was less about setting up a comic book company, comic book publisher, then it was more about like, well, let's see who comes towards us with said
yeah,
package to because I could see even now, like, signing away your life to get a nice fat little check, or selling this away, to receive a big fat check. But the suspicion in what you have been carrying through the conversation is like, that's not what you're about. You're not that's not a long game in the way that you're making something, as you were saying, like the initial punch out for Lost Landers was, hey, there's no toys out there that kids can play with. I still if I have 10 minutes and I see a Dollar Tree, I always go in and I bug anybody on the floor to try to help me find the comics and the toys. But the toys you can always find, the little figurines and
yep.
everything. But the comics, those are hard to find. So I have still two in there, but I still think that this is, and with you, Tom, it's a similar model that it is like a lost art form, where you're making something where some group of kids get together already, and now that they all have their own, understanding of the comic book
Right.
and their favorite figure to play into, it all then grows from there. The
A,
next generation is being developed, as you were
a,
saying, with,
a, hun- a, hun-
Batman comics and X-Men animation.
110%. I mean,
Right.
the majority of people found comic books not in comic book stores.
Right.
They found them in other places. And I just go back to I spent about a year and a half really researching toy development and what's popular and what's going on, and looking at numbers, and like there's this market of these very successful toy conventions that are producing these action figures, and they're raising a couple $100,000 to $1 million with their kickstarters and their crowdfunders. And then when I dug layers, peeled the onion layers away, I realized it's a hobby. None of these people are truly making real money.
Right.
They're trying to, if you raise $200,000 on a normal action figure, let's say McFarlane or you know um, that style figure in detail, right? Like you're only going to get 1,000 or 2,000 units, like by the time everything's done, cost wise.
Yeah.
So like you're lucky in 3 to 5 years if you paid made your money back. And so I went with the Muscleman style for figures because I want to get them in stores. I want to be able to print 20,000, 40,000, 100,000 units and have a high margin in it and be able to, more importantly, be able to wholesale it to, your Dollar Tree or Dollar General or your
Right.
Five Below or whatever it is,
Right.
and get it in front of people.
Ollies.
Right, Kroger's, whatever, groceries. I don't, they all have toys and all that stuff. Like,
Right.
why not? So my angle is not to just try to emulate what's being done and considered successful right now because people see a high number and they're like, oh, they raised $1 million. And I'm like, yeah, you have no idea what their overhead is to keep that up, to build that corporation, all those sorts of things.
So Kurt,
You know.
Kurt and I are in our mid to late 50s, I think, right? And we're a little cranky when it comes to all these kids today, and we remember playing. We remember playing with action figures and Planet of the Apes and Marvel and taking the heads off and everything. But nowadays, I see there's a lot more plushies. I see there's a lot more Funkos. I see there's a lot more like parents that are telling the kids, no, you can never take it out of the box. So, what is your like? Also, what is this rumor I heard that Funko is going up belly up, and what's your view of these other things that we find in comic stores now that are that we didn't see, back in the day? They're
Well,
are they
I think
are they
anybody that
twisting
I
into?
think anybody.
I'm wondering if it's
Sorry,
just
I didn't
like
mean to-
if parents are trying to teach their kids how to be a collector rather than than playing with
Play with
toys. And
toys.
I mean, it's good in the
well,
long run
I
if
think
you're
the
like Leonardo and you're selling all your Star Wars toys at Sotheby's, but the average kid isn't thinking about that right now.
I don't think you can build a fan base or you can build an experience by buying something and sticking it on the shelf and never, especially with a toy, and never playing with it. It's not a toy. It's just, and I'll go back to comic books from the 90s. You remember all of the comic books that printed millions of copies, and every one of them said collector's item.
Yep.
Yeah,
None of them are worth anything at all,
no,
right?
I just
And
told Kurt I saw the
yeah,
full run of all Image comics in the dollar bins when I was down in Florida.
yeah, the in Image, like there's some Spawn, like later, like issue, I don't know, 100 to 150, and there's a that ran to about 200 that have some value. So you figure that's basically late 90s, early 2000s,
Yeah,
um, and but the early Image stuff was mass produced. And there was a lot of good art. Doesn't mean there was a lot of good stories or good packages.
yeah.
um,
It was
and
flashy coloring.
it was flashy, it was new, it was cool. I bought them all, I read them all. I've reread some of them and I laughed. I'm like, oh, how did I think this was at all cool? But that's taste, and as you grow and you experience and you learn more. But I think that what you're talking about is a problem, but I think it's also a problem because you can produce things, and Mattel might have found it with this He-Man movie.
Yeah.
Have you
Oh
seen
yeah.
and I'm sorry to jump a little bit. The Mattel just did an exclusive with Walmart's for a brand of He-Man figures that are $9.99.
Love it. Love it.
If you haven't,
I
if you
hear a
haven't
lot.
seen,
I mean, I'm
look
not
them up.
even a He-Man guy. I just hear so much buzz from kids and adults.
But just the idea that a parent could buy an action figure, a couple of them for $20, for their kids to play with, is affordable, and it's
Yeah.
then the parents not going to care if they take it out and muddy it up and break it. But if they're spending, like, Marvel Legends being $25 retail,
Yeah.
like, do you remember the Toy Biz figures, the Marvel figures, guys?
I remember.
You remember that?
I remember the '70s figures. I used to play with the '70s
Right.
figures. Yeah. They had
But
cloth.
the Migos and all, but yeah, I feel like they're just not understanding what a difference between a statue and a collectible item is versus an actual toy. And they just need to be toys. Kids need breaks away from this technology stuff. They need to go out. They need to interact. They need to do stuff. It's lost right now,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I hope it's like any creative thing I do. Like I do it for reasons and purposes. I want to tell stories, but I want it to have impact in different ways. And Dream Runner was suicide awareness and prevention. And if one person in a year of going to all the big cons and putting out literature with a suicide hotline it helped one kid, then I did something
Yeah,
great, or one person.
yeah.
But like it's kind of the same thing. So
Yeah, well, it's definitely changing the world, and we Kurt and I, we put comics out in the '90s. Then you try getting back into it, and it's a whole new learning curve. So that's why we love talking to retailers, and we love like finding out. You're a lot more in touch with different types of customers, and regular customers, and what the expectations are. So it's really good to check in
yep.
every once in a while.
Yeah, with that being said, let's wrap it up so we can let Tom get back to the rest of his rainy Sunday. But
Yeah,
I
so much fun.
can't.
Sorry, there's trouble getting in this technology. I'm an old man. I couldn't figure it out.
No. It actually was. It had nothing to do with you.
I know. So,
Has everything to do with iPhones. But like I said, I always enjoy coming by and talking to you in person. You did share a lot from our conversation, which is what I wanted to accomplish on here. And you being in the publishing development side and the comic book store side, I think it's a splash of cold water on us indie comic creators' faces. And the message that I'm really walking away with in reminder is that end game. It's a marathon. What is it your goal is? And then make sure that you stay connected to that. But Tom, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to plug in website, store locations, and that, but we'll let you get going.
yeah, lostlanders.com, and then Comics and Gaming Gainesville, Comics and Gaming West Fenwick. Uh, big sites on Facebook for both of those stores with big followings. Azure Press, which is produced Ranger and books like that, has a pretty good following on Facebook as well. But yeah, so it's out there. I can be found. And so,
Cool. And are
and
are you having
I look for,
any?
I look forward to I look forward to being on it again, and having more things to share and talk about. And
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun, interesting year for sure.
Are you
absolutely.
planning on doing any cons in the summer, late spring or summer?
Yeah, so I'm booked for Big Lick, Nova, which is in May. I'm booked for Charlotte and Heroes World, which I love that show. Baltimore always. I can't talk enough about what impact Baltimore and Heroes have for comics, because they're pure comic shows. There's other stuff there, but there's more comic creators at both their shows than New York and
Yeah,
San Diego. And it's about comic books.
yeah,
So Ocean City Comic Con. I do a couple. Schaff Promotion does like 7 or 8 ones in a fire hall in Annandale, Virginia. They do a couple in Frederick, Maryland. I do those. Just all different sizes. My wife and I've let her handle this part. We created the Roxana Comic Con. We put it together in 6 weeks last year, and we got 350 people through the door,
Oh
and
man.
all the vendors made money. So and we
great.
raised money for the firehouse, which is important. And so we're going to do that the August 22nd this year. So um, I'm trying to figure out how not to get too much bigger. I
Um,
just, I just, I want it
are
to be
you
kind of
aware of
a,
are you aware of IC3? Because they just opened up for applications for July 11th, Jacksonville. Is that
okay.
is that in your range there?
Jacksonville, Florida, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or I'm not familiar with it, so I'd have to look on it. July is probably my worst month to do things. And the main reason is that I am a seasonal beach store,
Okay.
in essence. So from Memorial Day through Labor Day is 80 to 90% of my income for this one store. So my kids are a little older and can definitely work more, and they can handle the business pretty well. But it's hard for me to travel a lot. So
Yeah.
June is Charlotte, and then August there's in Roanoke a show.
Yeah.
There's a couple toy shows that guys trying to get me to go to, and if we have figures, my schedule will change for the summer and the fall. I might. I have ins, and so does Guy for New York Comic Con. So if we're at a position where we actually have a lot of books and product out, especially in the toy stuff, um,
Yeah.
I might pop up I might pop up in New York this year. I don't know.
Yeah, the
That's
Comic Con.
definitely
I was watching the replays on YouTube of the New York Comic Con, and it just looks like a crush. It's just like so crowded. So
yeah, yes.
the artist alley was great though, and but the rest of it, it's just like it's so crowded, and it's just a massive space at the Jacob Javits. So it's like it's just overwhelming for people that are used to like a small town con.
Right. I think I think a thing that's needed is I think there needs to be uh, better small press expos.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge need for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's kind of what
and
IC3 is, but
That's
there's
exactly what IC3
oh,
is.
that's exactly what it is. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's called the Indie Creator Comic Con. It started 3 years ago in New Haven, Connecticut, and now it's merged with
Okay.
comicartfan.com, which has then expanded itself into a OAX, which is Original Art Expo down in Orlando, which they just had their third year.
Great.
So yeah, it's definitely there's going to be growth. I can foresee if they can make maybe a little more than half of what their line item checklist is for what they want to do for getting indie creators seen and paid. But I think we're still just light years away from not light years. That's a little heavy-handed thing, but there's a lot of things I think that have to align socially speaking in people, kind of slowing down and appreciating said indie creator art form and stuff. But
Well,
it'll be interesting.
there
Very
also needs to be an understanding. I think that what you guys are doing with traditional pen and ink
yeah,
is going to become more and more of a lost art form.
yep.
I mean, the digital inking stuff, it's kind of out of control on some things.
Oh yeah.
I see books, and I see different um, digital inkers with, in essence, the same digital inking stroke. That's a problem. But those are things to maybe address on another call.
Yeah, definitely. We'll let you get going, Tom. Thank you so much. And when you clock off, just hold tight to watch to see your upload complete.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Yep, absolutely.
Take
Bye,
care.
Tom. Thanks.
All right, bye, guys. Take it easy.
Keep-
Jake, you want to do the outro for the cutaway version?
Yeah, if we're wrapping things up, folks, there you go. We just had another indie creator exchange with a creator slash retailer, Tom Cellini.
Yeah.
Another return visit. That was really cool. If you're were watching us since the beginning, thank you for hanging in there. Let me see if we got any comments today. I didn't see any before, but maybe there were some latecomers. We also want to remind you all that we're here every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be here next Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to see any of our archived interviews with indie creators, go on to our Indie Creators Exchange tab on our YouTube landing page. And also, you can see our wonderful flip throughs, which I did a little of today. on our Comics That Influence tab. And thanks very much to Kurt, who always takes the time to cut those up and post those so that you can just dial in when you want to see some flip throughs of some cool comics. It's great to get inspiration when you're stuck, when you have writer's block, or when you're staring at a blank page, to just watch us thumb through some comics and talk about them from the perspective of two art teachers. And yeah, we'll see you guys again next Sunday, right back here, same bat channel. And just on the outs, we had Mystery Eye checking in today, and Daryl Grant checking in today, who said these are old Archie Comics properties from the 60s. I think he was talking about the Red Circle comic that we were showing. Thanks a lot for Daryl for piping in on that. And I see that you've got Corinne, her artwork there. I think I just friended Corinne on like Facebook or something. But
yeah, we got her for the 10th. Next month, she's taking off from work just to hang out with us on the 10th. Acid Nun and Scorpio Venus Rising are her two accomplishments. But one of the other things is, yes, Corinne Hart is her name. Halbert, excuse me. Corinne Halbert. You can find her on Instagram. She also does a Corinne's Comic Corner, which is always nice to have pop up in the feed. And because she works for Forbidden Planet, she just really does this great, like, here's a comic you might not be familiar with, and, does a little chitty chat about it stuff. But really overdue having Corinne on, having seen her last year at SPX, and you recently running into her at MoCA. She says she is very, very excited to be with us.
Folks can find her pretty regularly at her day job, or I don't know if it's part-time or full-time or whatever, but she works at Forbidden Planet NYC, undoubtedly the best comic store in Manhattan. But you find her there, and you might see like a little sign there that has Corinne's recommendations. So that's another cool thing they do at that store is they have employees giving recommendations and stuff. So yeah, that'll be a good episode. But yeah, folks can just dial back on YouTube and see us here next week. And if you want to leave comments, feel free to plug your own stuff and touch base. We try to have all these great indie creators on our show, on our pod eventually. So don't be shy if that's you.
All right, Jake. I'll see you next Sunday.
Sounds good, Kurt. Check you guys out later. Peace.